Chapter 2078. It was as if Yun Jian had done the breathtaking action thousands of times without a hitch. The people who followed her from afar had an illusion for a moment. It was as if she was meant to live in a world filled with bloodshed. However, for some reason, she had come to the ordinary world they lived in. Just as they were thinking about it, a few limousines stopped a few dozen meters away from the black van and convertible sports car that were parked closely together. "Don't come over. I'll go take a look." The principal got out of the car and walked towards Yun Jian. He was worried that something would happen to the children. However, if there was any danger, he would bear it alone. "Principal. Let me go." The female teacher held the principal back and gulped. Although she was afraid, she still wanted to walk over. "You guys stay here. I'll go." Zhang Zhifan stopped her. As he spoke, he took off his blazer and tossed it to one of his men in the limousine. The man quickly caught the blazer that Zhang Zhifan tossed to him. At the same time, Zhang Zhifan was already walking towards the black van. Zhang Zhifan had not only developed new crews well in the past few years, but he had also been improving his own abilities. Although he might not be able to defeat a high-level assassin, at least he would not cause trouble for Yun Jian and could even help Yun Jian. At the same time, Yun Jian had already walked to about 10 meters away from the black van in front of everyone. She stopped and glanced at the black van from the corner of her eyes. "African leopard, I know you're in the van. Why don't you come out? Are all the assassins in Reverse Emperor like you? Cowardly? You're the 5th-ranked assassin in the International Assassin chart. Is that all you've got?" Yun Jian stared at the black van. Unknowingly, she had already put the gun back into the holster on her waist and squinted her eyes. The windows of the black van were covered with a layer of film, so the people inside could not be seen from the outside. Bam! Sure enough, as soon as Yun Jian finished speaking, the car door was opened, and a 2-meter-tall, burly middle-aged man got out of the car. After the burly middle-aged man got out of the car, he looked at Yun Jian. His right hand behind his back was dragging a big hammer. He held the big hammer and dragged it to the ground as he walked towards Yun Jian. This burly middle-aged man was African Leopard, ranked 5th on the International Assassin rankings. Although he was 2 meters tall and was a heavyweight, the speed of the African Leopard was like that of a real cheetah, fast and agile. He was strong and fast. Even if it was the assassin or secret agent ranking, the assassins or secret agents who were ranked above the African Leopard would have to be 100% vigilant against him. Because the slightest carelessness could lead to instant death. "Little girl?" The African Leopard glanced at Yun Jian. Obviously, he did not recognize Yun Jian's identity. Although he despised Yun Jian for being a little girl in his heart. However, it could be seen from the way Yun Jian stopped their black van just now. This little girl was not weak at all. F***CK, kill her. The African Leopard's eyes darkened as he ordered the men who came out of the van. Hearing that, the men took out their weapons. Wu Zhizhi and the rest who saw this scene were pale with fright. At the same time, Yun Jian stared at the men. The next sentence that came out of her mouth shocked Wu Zhizhi and the rest of the men. Even African Leopard and the men who were standing beside him were shocked. The 8th on the International Assassin rankings, Slaying Dragon. The 15th on the International Assassin rankings, Xing Tian. The 29th on the International Assassin rankings, Long Yi. The International 3S Wanted Criminal, retired sharpshooter from Country X, Flying Lion. The Reverse Emperor organization is really willing to pay any price to get rid of me. But it's a pity that you elites will die here, eh? Chapter 2079. Something unacceptable was happening on the road from Bianwu town to the city. At the same time, in Yiling's house. Lin Wei really treated Yiling's house as his own. After a year, Lin Wei moved into Yiling's house openly. Other than returning to an Han organization to deal with internal affairs, Lin Wei went to Yiling's house to eat and drink. He even asked to sleep with Yiling. Yiling's mother, Ji Qinqin, and father, Yi Datong, didn't dare to disobey Lin Wei. Ji Qinqin and Yi Datong heard from Yiling that Lin Wei was the second in command of a gang and was very powerful. Ji Qinqin and Yi Datong didn't dare to disobey Lin Wei because they were afraid that Lin Wei would take their daughter away again. Their daughter had been missing for more than 10 years. To Ji Qinqin and Yi Datong, it was fine as long as Yiling was fine. Therefore, Lin Wei also openly slept in the same room as Yiling in front of her parents. In fact, Ji Qinqin already thought that Lin Wei had taken advantage of her daughter. Now that Lin Wei wasn't in Yiling's house, Ji Qinqin called Yiling to her room. "Mom, why did you call me here?" Yiling didn't know why Ji Qinqin called her here. "Lingling, did you do that with him?" Ji Qinqin was too embarrassed to ask at first. "What do you mean?" Yiling frowned slightly. Her sky-blue eyes were very beautiful. "That. Did he wear a condom when you did it?" Ji Qinqin was experienced too. She didn't beat around the bush and asked directly. Yiling didn't know what Ji Qinqin was talking about before. Now that she heard Ji Qinqin's words, she understood. "Mom. We." Yiling's face turned red instantly. Okay. Mom knows. Lingling, it's been hard on you this year. Mom and Dad are useless. If we were more capable, we wouldn't let you suffer like this. Lingling, I'm sorry for doing this with someone I don't like. Ji Qinqin said, and tears fell down. She felt sorry for her daughter. Her daughter was already back home, but she couldn't stop Lin Wei from doing that to Yiling. She didn't dare to say anything. After all, Lin Wei was a gang member. "Mom. There was no such thing." Yiling shook her head. "No, Lingling, listen to Mom. Mom and Dad have discussed it. We'll definitely help you escape from that man. That man won't come today. Hurry up and run. Mom and Dad are here. Even if that man kills you, Mom and Dad won't let you sell your body again." As Ji Qinqin spoke, she took out a bank card from her room and handed it to Yiling with trembling hands. "Lingling, this is all our savings. Take it and run. Run as far as you can." Yiling shook her head when she realized that her mother had misunderstood her. She wanted to stuff the bank card back into Ji Qinqin's hands. "Mom, no, take it. Let's go now." Ji Qinqin seemed to have made up her mind. Without giving Yiling a chance to speak, she shoved the bank card into Yiling's hand and pushed her out. Who would have thought that as soon as he opened the door, he would see Lin Wei standing indifferently at the door? Ji Qinqin was shocked. Yiling's heart skipped a beat. "Where are you going?" Just as Yiling's heart skipped a beat, Lin Wei's pleasant and magnetic voice rang out. There was a trace of coldness in his voice that had never been there before. He was angry. Yiling's heart unconsciously panicked. "No, I'm not leaving." Yiling wanted to explain, but Lin Wei grabbed her wrist and dragged her to her room in front of Ji Qinqin. He locked the door. After entering the room, Lin Wei threw Yiling onto the bed and began to undress. "Did I give you too much time to accept me? So you want to run away? They say that women know their place when they're pregnant. Then I won't be polite." As he spoke, Lin Wei unbuckled his belt and unzipped her underwear. Chapter 2080. Ouch. 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 Yiling was still in a daze when Lin Wei completely penetrated her. How did this happen? Wasn't everything fine just now? She thought it was just her mother, Ji Qinqin, who wanted to have a heart-to-heart talk with her. How did it turn out like this? Yiling couldn't describe how she felt. If she didn't want to accept Lin Wei, she would have started to struggle. But Yiling didn't struggle. So when her underwear was pulled open, Yi Ling was completely turned into Lin Wei's woman before she could react. Maybe she already liked him. After Lin Wei violently penetrated her, Yi Ling reached out her hands and wrapped them around Lin Wei's neck. She buried her head in his shoulders. Her legs wrapped around his waist. Softer, she said softly like a kitten. Even her earlobes were flushed. Didn't she want to escape? Escape from his world. So Lin Wei crudely penetrated her. But now she didn't make a fuss. Instead, she cooperated with him. What was going on? Desire overshadowed his rational mind. Lin Wei, who had tasted something new for the first time in over 20 years, didn't hesitate anymore and continued to move. Ji Qin, who was outside the room, heard that her precious daughter was being forced again. She hid in her room and cried. Ji Qin would never have thought that she was the cause of all this. At the same time, on the rugged mountain path from Wuxia to the city, Yun Jian's words carried a certain aura and entered everyone's ears. Wu Zhizhi, Shen Qingjiang, and the others who were standing in the distance all widened their eyes when they heard Yun Jian's words. The first four were all international assassins? And one was a retired sharpshooter from Country X? Are these all international bigwigs? Why would such terrifying people appear here? Mu Xiaoxiao's eyes widened when he heard this and asked. Mu Xiaoxiao obviously knew about these things. After hearing this, his face changed drastically. What national, international bigwigs? Just because she said so, it's just because she said so. Wu Zhizhi saw that the people in front of her, led by African Leopard, had taken out unusual weapons. She didn't want to admit the truth. She stuttered and shouted again. But before Wu Zhizhi could finish her sentence, everyone saw that African Leopard and the other four were also shocked after hearing Yun Jian's words. An ordinary little girl naturally wouldn't be able to recognize them at a glance. Moreover, Yun Jian had only glanced at them once, and she had already exposed their backgrounds. Who was she? How do you know our identities so well? The African Leopard glared at Yun Jian and asked. African Leopard's words directly confirmed their identities. Wu Zhizhi's words just now made her look like a clown, and her face turned even uglier. There's nothing that I don't know about internationally. In front of them, Yun Jian didn't hide her smile. You, who are you? At this moment, the African Leopard had no choice but to pay attention to Yun Jian. He had to pay attention to this little girl who they did not pay attention to in the beginning. Big brother, don't waste time on this little girl. Let's quickly bring them back to the organization and report to the boss. No matter who she is, even if she's one of the top 3 figures in the international assassin ranking, she won't be able to escape if the 5 of us work together. Long Yi, who was ranked 29th in the international assassin ranking, stood beside African Leopard and said to him while wiping his nose. 5 top international assassins against 1 Yun Jian. As long as she wasn't the international legend that made people tremble in fear. She was definitely no match for them. Is that so? Hearing Long Yi's words, Yun Jian's red arc grew deeper in front of Wu Zhizhi and the others. 5 against 1, is it? Do you know anything about the Blood Night incident? Yun Jian continued. Blood Night incident. Hearing Yun Jian's words, the 5 people led by African Leopard were stunned. Of course, they knew. Who in the underworld didn't know about the Blood Night incident? The Blood Night incident was the reason why Slaying God, who was ranked first in the international secret agent ranking, became famous. Back then, Slaying God's rise had shocked the world. The top 10 assassins in the international assassin ranking, including the top 10 secret agents in the international secret agent ranking, had joined forces to besiege and kill Slaying God. However, in the end, the top 20 secret agents in the international secret agent assassin world were massacred by Slaying God with her bare hands on that night. She went up against the top 20 secret agents in the international secret agent assassin circle alone. Slaying God won. That was the Blood Night incident. The Blood Night incident back then had shocked the world. Since the top 10 secret agents in the international secret agent and assassin ranking were all dead, it was only natural that other secret agents and assassins would replace them. However, anyone in the circle would see slaying God as someone they would rather commit suicide than provoke. The Blood Night incident back then was a result of slaying God taking on more than one person. Now that this little girl mentioned it, what was the meaning behind it? African Leopard and the other 4 panicked for no reason. However, they did not have time to think further. Yun Jian had already smoothed out the red arc on her forehead in front of everyone. Her indifferent side profile was facing African Leopard and the other 4. Her cold voice was like a reenactment of the Blood Night incident, spreading to everyone's hearts and stirring up a wave of fear. It's been 3 years. Since the Blood Night incident, this is the first time the top assassins have joined forces to attack me again. So, are you ready to die, eh? Chapter 2081. During the Bloody Night incident, the top 20 assassins on the International Assassin and Secret Agent Leaderboard had joined forces to go against Slaying God, who was not ranked first on the International Secret Agent Leaderboard. It was because Slaying God was too powerful and would pose a threat to them sooner or later. African Leopard and the rest were well aware of that. The 5 of them combined could not be compared to the top 20 assassins on the International Assassin Leaderboard. However, what did Yun Jian mean by that? It's been 3 years. Since the Bloody Night incident, this is the first time the assassins on the leaderboard have joined forces to attack me again? Did Yun Jian mean that there were assassins on the leaderboard who had joined forces to attack her before? Furthermore, Yun Jian had mentioned the Bloody Night incident. Based on this comparison, could she be the one who had fought the top 20 assassins on the International Secret Agent Leaderboard during the Bloody Night incident? She rose to fame in one battle, causing an uproar in the international circle. Countless business tycoons were terrified when they heard her name. The top assassin on the International Secret Agent Leaderboard, Slaying God? Are you Faye? Are you S from the Bloody Night incident? Before he could finish the word kill, a voice rang out. You can die now. Everyone heard a flat voice that they could not tell if it was happy or sad. Wu Zhizhi, Shen Qingjiang, and the rest could only see the flash of a knife from afar. They could not even see when Yun Jian had attacked. Long Yi, who had wanted to reveal Yun Jian's identity in his panic, had his throat slit by Yun Jian's flying knife. Long Yi was the 29th assassin on the International Secret Agent Leaderboard. He was also the weakest among the 5. Frightened by Yun Jian's skills, the remaining 4, including African Leopard, did not dare to reveal the codename that sent chills down their spines just thinking about it. Long Yi's death did not shock African Leopard and the rest. In their world, the death of a person was a common occurrence. Even if someone who had been with them had died in front of them, African Leopard and the rest would not be too shocked. Wu Zhizhi, on the other hand, was so shocked that she covered her mouth and screamed, "Ah! Ah! Dead. Someone's dead. Yun Jian killed someone." Wu Zhizhi's shouting and wrangling immediately attracted the attention of African Leopard and the others. Seeing this, Shen Qingjiang, who had a close relationship with Wu Zhizhi, slapped Wu Zhizhi in front of everyone. "Are you trying to get us killed?" When Wu Zhizhi saw that her beloved Shen Qingjiang had slapped her in front of everyone, she covered her cheek with her hand and wanted to cry. "It's just a clown. Now it's time to settle our score," Yun Jian sneered when she saw African Leopard and the others looking at Wu Zhizhi. It was not to save Wu Zhizhi. Yun Jian had always been clear about kindness and hatred. Even if African Leopard and the others killed Wu Zhizhi in public, it had nothing to do with her. She just didn't want to waste time. What debt? After African Leopard and the others guessed Yun Jian's identity, they were so scared that their faces darkened. At this moment, the tone of his voice was trembling with fear. "Reverse Emperor, why did they send you here?" Yun Jian asked. There was no answer to his question. "You're not going to tell me, are you?" Yun Jian took out 2 butterfly knives from both sides of her thighs and twirled them in her palms as she walked toward African Leopard and the others. With the butterfly knives, African Leopard and the others were even more certain of Yun Jian's identity. At this moment, the 4 of them were so scared that their expressions changed drastically. Let the children go first. Just when African Leopard and the others were about to fight to the death, Yun Jian suddenly put away the butterfly knives and said with her arms crossed. In the face of slaying God, even if they had hostages, they would not be able to survive. African Leopard and the others knew that very well. They won't take the children as hostages, right? The female teacher from afar asked fearfully. The crowd was nervous as well. However, before they could get nervous, African Leopard and the others had already obediently released the 5 kidnapped children. They released the children so quickly that it was as if they were afraid that they would be killed by Yun Jian, who was scarier than a river beast if they were too late. Seeing that, Wu Zhizhi, Shen Qingjiang, the principal, the female teacher, Liang Xiumin, Mu Yu, and the rest were bewildered. Who was this Yun Jian? Why did African Leopard and the others, who were so intimidating earlier, act like obedient dogs now? They would do whatever Yun Jian told them to do. Chapter 2082. The kidnapped children were obviously frightened. Zhang Zhifan walked over to take the children back one by one and handed them to the female teacher and the principal. The female teacher rubbed the children's heads. She was obviously scared out of her wits. However, the female teacher was a smart person. She knew that such a scene was not suitable for the children to continue staying. She was afraid that the children would be psychologically distorted after seeing the bloody scene. Therefore, the female teacher touched a child's head and quickly turned to look at Zhang Zhifan. She said, "Can you please send someone to send the 5 children back to our town first?" "Okay." Zhang Zhifan immediately understood when he heard this. He immediately nodded and responded. Then, he turned around and said to one of his men who was driving the limousine, "Xiao Yuan, send these children back to the town we just went to, and then come back to pick us up." The driver, who Zhang Zhifan called Xiao Yuan, nodded after hearing this. After watching the 5 children get into the car and drive away, the female teacher breathed a sigh of relief. No matter what happened next, now that the children had left, it was easy to say. "We let them go. You should let us go too." African Leopard, who was not far away, continued to speak to Yun Jian after the 5 children left. Let them go? Just now, the 5 children were in the hands of African Leopard and his group. According to the bad guy's setting, shouldn't he take the 5 children as hostages to threaten Yun Jian and everyone present? Moreover, the people led by African Leopard were killers on the international killer list. All of them had high statuses. But why didn't they take the 5 children as hostages? Instead, they listened to Yun Jian and let them go obediently. That was fine. But one of the 5 was dead. 4 men actually begged Yun Jian to let them go. Wu Zhizhi, Kai Xinyuan, Shen Qingjiang, and the others who were standing in the distance were already in an uproar. Yun Jian was the same as them. They were all ordinary college students. Not to mention that Yun Jian was facing a few top killers from the world this time. Even if they encountered ordinary kidnappers, they would be so scared that they would squat on the ground with their heads in their hands and pee their pants in terror. Why did it turn upside down in Yun Jian's hands? It was actually these top assassins from the world. Beg Yun Jian to forgive them? What did she mean by the bloody night incident? At this moment, Mu Yu, who was good at thinking about the details, muttered to herself. "I've never heard of it." Liang Xiumin heard Mu Yao's muttering and took the opportunity to reply. How could anyone present know about the bloody night incident? However, if they were to ask their father, who was a businessman, they would probably be able to find out what exactly the famous bloody night incident was. At that moment, Yun Jian didn't give the surrounding people a chance to continue talking. She turned her body around to face African Leopard and the other 3. Her cold and indifferent face made African Leopard and the other three slightly flustered. Let you go? If you don't tell me why Reverse Emperor sent you here today, do you think you can leave this place alive? Yun Jian glanced at the four men as if she was looking at four corpses. There was a strange luster in his eyes, as if he was a king who ruled over life and death. African Leopard and the other three men shuddered. Looks like you guys are planning to keep your mouths shut. Yun Jian's eyes flickered. As she spoke, a half-smile appeared on her face and she extended a hand to Qingyu. You, take out your newly developed poison. There are ready-made white mice here for you to test the efficacy of your newly developed poison for free. Yes. Qingyu took out the poison in front of everyone after listening to Yun Jian. It was a small bottle of liquid solvent. However, when African Leopard and the other three heard how Yun Jian addressed Qingyu, their eyes widened in front of Wu Zhizhi and the rest who were far away. In the next second, the four men, led by African Leopard, took a few more glances at Qingyu and exclaimed in fear. Are you the world's top poison expert, Lady Poison? A. Chapter 2083. If Slaying God, the number one on the International Secret Agent Leaderboard, was a character that struck fear in African Leopard and the rest. However, African Leopard and the rest had never thought that they would meet someone like Slaying God. After all, Slaying God's mystery was no secret in the circle. Qingyu, the wicked lady, who followed Slaying God, was closer to the truth than Slaying God. Unlike Slaying God, no one knew who she really looked like. Not only was Qingyu Yun Jian's subordinate, but Slaying God would always get Qingyu to do whatever she wanted. Hence, when people heard Qingyu's name internationally, it was as if they had seen Slaying God in person, causing them to break out in cold sweat. Moreover, Qingyu was the world's number one poison expert. Even if you walked a dozen meters away from her, she would still be able to poison you silently. Even if you died on the spot, no one would be able to find out the cause of death. Therefore, other than Slaying God, Qingyu, the wicked lady, was the last person the assassins on the leaderboard wanted to meet. Now, the two terrifying characters that the international assassins and secret agents did not want to meet the most were right in front of them. African Leopard and the other three's expressions could not be described with just one word. It was the fear of impending death. Slaying God alone was enough to kill them. Now, there was the world's number one poison expert. Will you let us go if we tell you? African Leopard asked Yun Jian. Yun Jian nodded. Big brother, if we tell you, I'm afraid we won't be able to return to Reverse Emperor. Annihilation Dragon, the number 8 assassin on the leaderboard, said to African Leopard after hearing what Yun Jian said. It's still better than dying. Reverse Emperor wasn't our home to begin with. Boss only hired us to join Reverse Emperor 2 years ago. Moreover, Boss has assigned us to carry out all kinds of dangerous missions for the past 2 years. Boss must have known that we'd meet them today. Since Boss isn't giving us a way out, why should we stay with Reverse Emperor? Where there's life, there's hope. Reverse Emperor was unkind to us, so why should we be kind to them? African Leopard said, clenching his fists. After that, the African Leopard seemed to have made up his mind to confess to Yun Jian. Let's talk over there. Yun Jian waved her hand and walked towards the track in the distance. When African Leopard and the other three saw this, they also followed. Yun Jian didn't stop until she was sure that Wu Zhizhi and the others couldn't hear her. You can speak now. Hearing this, African Leopard did not play any tricks. He spoke bluntly and told him everything he knew. It wasn't until African Leopard and the other three left with Long Yi's corpse in the black van that Wu Zhizhi and the others recovered from their daze. After he left, Wu Zhizhi, Shen Qingjiang, and Kai Xinyuan finally dared to walk over from afar. Liang Xiaomin and Mu Shao also followed. How dare you kill someone just now? Wu Zhizhi shouted at Yun Jian as soon as she walked over. This irrational behavior was very consistent with her identity as a rich family's young miss. Mu Xiao, on the other hand, wisely chose to hold Liang Xiumin without saying anything or asking anything. The principal, the female teacher, and those who came with them wisely chose to ignore the series of events that happened just now. Yun Jian ignored Wu Zhizhi while Qing Yu looked at the black van. It was only when it disappeared from everyone's sight that Qing Yu asked Yun Jian, "Sister Jian, do you need me to go after them and kill them? Kill them after letting them go?" Wu Zhizhi was about to say that Yun Jian was ignoring her when she heard Qing Yu's question and shut her mouth in fright. Yun Jian, who stood beside the group, narrowed her eyes. Just when everyone thought that Yun Jian was going to keep quiet, her nonchalant voice rang with unprecedented confidence and ambition. "There's no need for that. It won't be long before Reverse Emperor, including them, becomes my subordinates, eh?" Chapter 2084. Yun Jian had always been a woman of her words. Qing Yu knew this very well. Qing Yu nodded. "Didn't you say that Reverse Emperor is an assassin organization? You want to take over the assassin organization and their assassins? Yun Jian, what do you do for a living?" Wu Zhizhi was so dumb that she could not keep her words to herself. Liang Xiumin and Wu Zhizhi were both young ladies, but Liang Xiumin was smarter than Wu Zhizhi and knew what to ask and what not to ask. Wu Zhizhi, on the other hand, never knew what to ask and what not to ask. Or maybe it was curiosity that took over, causing Wu Zhizhi to ask directly whenever she wanted to know the answer. By then, Yun Jian had already turned and made her way to Qing Yu's convertible sports car. Just as she was about to walk toward Qing Yu's convertible sports car, she heard Wu Zhizhi's dumb question. Yun Jian's lips curled upward when she heard that. "Do you know why I killed that person just now?" However, what Yun Jian said surprised everyone present. Wu Zhizhi still did not understand after some thought, but she was a little afraid of Yun Jian's gaze. Therefore, the words that came out of Wu Zhizhi's mouth were laced with coldness. Why? Because he's as talkative as you are." Yun Jian suddenly reached out and slashed Wu Zhizhi's neck. Before the crowd could react, they saw the gleam of a knife in Yun Jian's hand. Wu Zhizhi was stunned as well. When she came back to her senses, the gleam of the knife had already slashed her neck. "Ah! No! I don't want to die." There was a swoosh. When the crowd reacted, they saw Yun Jian cutting off a large chunk of Wu Zhizhi's hair that fell over her shoulders with the butterfly knife. That sound was the soft and crisp sound of a strand of hair being cut. Wu Zhizhi breathed out in relief. She was scared out of her wits. By the time Wu Zhizhi came back to her senses, Yun Jian had already walked to the convertible sports car. The moment before she sat in the convertible sports car, she turned around and looked at Wu Zhizhi with a red smile. "I don't think anyone has ever told you that nosy people like you die the quickest." Without waiting for Wu Zhizhi's response, Yun Jian held the car door with one hand and jumped into the driver's seat through the sunroof of the convertible sports car. Qing Yu hopped into the passenger seat of the convertible sports car as well. In Yun Jian's hands, the convertible sports car drew a straight line and disappeared in the blink of an eye like a shooting star. Yi Ling's house. Yi Ling's boudoir was filled with the scent of a man and a woman after making love. Yi Ling was tormented by Lin Wei and took a nap. Now that she woke up, she suddenly realized that she had been tortured by him. "Ah!" Yi Ling almost jumped up from the bed and then turned over. At this moment, she was naked and fell directly to the ground. The numbness in her thighs made Yi Ling prop herself up, but she could not stand properly. However, just as Yi Ling accidentally fell to the ground, a large hand reached out from the bed to grab her hand and pulled her back onto the bed. "Trying to escape?" Lin Wei's cold voice rang. It was still the same simple and crude word. Having known Lin Wei for so long, Yi Ling could tell that he would not say much to her when he was angry. Actually, Lin Wei was used to being a man of few words. He was like that to everyone except for her. However, once Lin Wei was angry, he would speak to her in the same tone he spoke to everyone else. I didn't, Yi Ling's eyes darted around as she tried to explain. Lin Wei did not listen to Yi Ling as he lay on top of her. Open the door. Open the door. Don't blame Ling Ling, it's my fault. It's all my fault. Please let my daughter go. Come at me if you want to kill me, don't hurt Ling Ling. Outside the door, Yi Ling's mother, Ji Qinchin's voice of despair came. Just as Ji Qinchin finished her words, her daughter's moan of being violated echoed in the house. Ah, no, don't do this. Lin Wei penetrated Yi Ling again with only a door between them right in front of her mother. Chapter 2085. After that, Yi Ling was tormented by Lin Wei until she couldn't get out of bed. Ji Qinchin kept knocking on the door outside and had to give up in the end. Actually, Yi Ling's room was equipped with a spare key, but Ji Qinchin didn't dare to open the door. She was afraid to see the despair in her precious daughter's eyes. After Lin Wei finished eating Yi Ling, he put on his clothes and left the place. But before he left, Lin Wei helped Yi Ling change into a clean set of clothes. Where are you going? Yi Ling sat up straight and asked when she saw that Lin Wei was about to leave. I'll pick you up in 3 days. Lin Wei didn't say anything else. He left this sentence and walked out of the door. After opening the door, Lin Wei didn't even look at Ji Qinchin. His tall figure walked out of the Yi family's door in a few steps. After Lin Wei left, Ji Qinchin rushed into the house like a kite with a broken string to see her daughter. Lingling, I'll take you away. I'll take you away. I'll take care of you for the rest of your life. We'll still live without a man. Ji Qinchin thought that Yi Ling was frightened. She thought that Yi Ling couldn't accept it, so she rushed over to hug Yi Ling and take her away. A girl who had lost her virginity would be criticized even if she remarried. Ji Qinchin didn't want her daughter to suffer that. She had lost her daughter for 10 years. She must give her the best in the future. However, before Ji Qinchin could hug Yi Ling, she thought that Yi Ling would be in so much pain from being violated by Lin Wei again. Who knew that she would see Yi Ling's shy and embarrassed face? Mom, I think I like him. Yi Ling looked up. Her sky-blue eyes were sparkling. They were exquisite and beautiful, like a doll that had been carefully dressed up. They were so beautiful that it was unrealistic. Ji Qinchin was stunned. Huh? Then, wasn't everything she did before just messing around? Ji Qinchin was the kind of person who would support her daughter unconditionally as long as she liked it. Ji Qinchin's heart instantly relaxed when she heard that her daughter liked Lin Wei. To be honest, she quite liked Lin Wei, except for the fact that he was domineering. But if her daughter liked him, Lin Wei's domineering attitude would be good. That kind of man was the most loyal. H Province, W City, Wu Town. The 5 children had already been brought back safely. Yun Jian drove the convertible sports car back to Wuzhen first. After that, Zhang Zhifan brought the people who had chased after the black van back to Wuzhen. The group of people got out of the car. They were still in a daze from what had just happened. Sister, we've all heard that you're the one who saved 5 of our classmates and even chased away the bad guys. Thank you. At this time, Xing Zi led the 4th, 6th, and 6th grade students to Yun Jian. They tied up the bouquet that they had hurriedly gathered together and handed it to Yun Jian. The children blinked their innocent eyes, waiting to see Yun Jian receive the bouquet. Yun Jian raised her eyebrows slightly. Then, she accepted the bouquet of flowers from the children in front of everyone. It's beautiful. Just because Yun Jian said the words very beautiful, the children laughed happily. Although the smile looked silly, it contained the most innocent smile of a child. Wu Zhizhi dared not speak due to Yun Jian's behavior just now. In spite of it, her eyes were glued to Yun Jian as if she wanted to bore a hole through Yun Jian with her glare. Just as Wu Zhizhi was glaring at Yun Jian, the people around them saw Zhang Zhifan, who had put on his suit again, walk to Yun Jian and tell Yun Jian in public. Sister Jian, I've already donated 1 billion yuan to CI Xiong organization as per your order in the name of New Cruise's director. I believe that the money will be distributed to the poor mountainous areas in no time. Hopefully, it can bring an improvement to the children's standard of living. Chapter 2086. Zhang Zhifan's words were calm when they left his mouth, but when they reached everyone's ears, it was as simple as asking, "Have you eaten today?" But these simple words gave people a sense of surprise that brought them back to their senses. Wu Zhizhi, who was glaring at Yun Jian earlier, froze when she heard the question. New cruise? When the children were abducted by African Bao and the rest, no one thought much about it. Why would Qin Yu, Zhang Zhifan, and the rest appear here so coincidentally? But now, could you be New Cruise's current CEO, Mr. Zhang Zhifan? Mu Yu looked at Zhang Zhifan with shock and surprise on her face. Slowly, her surprised face turned into a look of deep worship. Zhang Zhifan was tugging at the red collar of his suit. When he heard Mu Yu, Zhang Zhifan turned to look at her. Then, in front of everyone, Zhang Zhifan nodded at Mu Yu. That's right. His every move and every word was filled with the elegance of an upper-class person. Zhang Zhifan was now adept at being New Cruise's CEO. Outsiders would not be able to tell that Zhang Zhifan was a street gangster. It was also because of this that Zhang Zhifan was able to promote New Cruise to other countries. Oh my God, are you really New Cruise's CEO, Zhang Zhifan? Although I've never seen your photo, I've always regarded you as the person I respect the most. I heard that in the past 2 years, your methods in the business world have left your peers far behind. In just 1 year, you stepped onto the national stage, and then, in just 2 years, you stepped onto the international stage. We're all proud of you. You're our role model. I didn't expect to meet you here today. I am so excited. Mu Yu stood before Zhang Zhifan in excitement like a person standing before her idol. She could not contain her excitement. Zhang Zhifan did not expect that someone would worship him so much. After hearing this, he felt a little embarrassed. How am I awesome? It's all thanks to Sister Jian that New Cruise is where it is today. I only look impressive on the surface, but Sister Jian is the real business elite. Zhang Zhifan scratched his head, laughed twice, and then said. Only now did the crowd regain their senses. From the moment Zhang Zhifan revealed Yun Jian's identity as New Cruise's director, everyone was stunned and in disbelief. The mysterious director of New Cruise was actually an 18-year-old girl. Oh my God! If Yun Jian is the director of New Cruise, how old was she when she started New Cruise? Liang Xiaomin exclaimed. Wasn't the difference a little too big? They were just ordinary university students. Even now, when they had no money, they were still reaching out to their families. What about Yun Jian? Could it be that she started a company when she was in junior high? Now that she was in university, her company was already officially operating on an international platform. Wu Zhizhi's eyes bulged and her face darkened, but she chose to remain silent. His expression was extremely ugly. It was as if she had gone to look down on someone back then and that person had flown to the sky to look down on her. Compared to New Cruise, Wu Zhizhi's father's company was nothing. Moreover, Wu Zhizhi had mocked her before, so she looked like she had lost all hope. However, that was not the end of it. After Zhang Zhifan heard what Liang Xiaomin said, his thoughts drifted back to the past. He chuckled and spoke without hesitation in front of everyone. Sister Jian came to us who were living at the bottom of society when she was 15, saying that she wanted to start a car marketing company. We were surprised back then, but we followed Yun Jian's lead. Actually, it's all thanks to Sister Jian that New Cruise can go international. She knows so many top international figures that we can't even count them with our fingers. Most importantly, those people listen to her. See, I used Sister Jian's name to negotiate with those people and everything went smoothly. There's one thing those people said about Sister Jian the most, and I agree with it a lot. It's that she, Yun Jian, is a legend that will never be defeated. Chapter 2087. She, Yun Jian, is a legend who will never be defeated. This was the highest compliment given by the international tycoons, businessmen, and politicians. It was also what Zhang Zhifan believed to be the truth. Yun Jian was truly a legend who would never be defeated. Whether it was Xinjiang town back then, Longmen City, Min City's military school, or the University of Rivertown now. Wherever Yun Jian was, there would be a legend. Knowing that Yun Jian was New Cruise's director, it was shocking news to Wu Zhizhi, Shen Qingjiang, Liang Xiumin, Mu Yu, and the rest. Of course, her identity as the director was enough to shock Wu Zhizhi, Shen Qingjiang, Liang Xiumin, and the rest. Now, Zhang Zhifan was saying that Yun Jian knew so many international tycoons that they could not even count them with their fingers. Moreover, those people obeyed Yun Jian's every word. What was even more shocking was that New Cruise's success today was all thanks to Zhang Zhifan. Now that they heard Zhang Zhifan's words, if it were not for Yun Jian's acquaintance with the international tycoons, without Yun Jian paving the way, Zhang Zhifan alone would never have the capability to lead New Cruise to the international stage. Yun Jian was the most important person for New Cruise to be where it was today. Wu Zhizhi, who cared a lot about her family background and wanted to compare her family background with her classmates and friends in school, had a dark expression on her face. Wu Zhizhi's face, which was obviously displeased after learning about Yun Jian's identity, was lowered slightly as she stared at the ground. Wu Zhizhi, who was initially blushing but now had a dark expression and was gripping the hem of her shirt tightly as if she was not going to back down, was now silent. Perhaps she was shocked by Yun Jian's behavior earlier, or perhaps she felt that her family background was not as good as Yun Jian's. Wu Zhizhi kept her head down, but she was actually so angry that she was about to spit blood. Some people wished that the world would come to see them when they were in the limelight. However, if they were slapped in the face, they would be like a football that was holding its breath, standing aside without a sound. Big brothers and sisters, my mother made mung bean soup for all of you. It's not much, but she said it's to thank you for saving me just now. Just then, a child dressed in dirty clothes walked over with a basket filled with a few bowls of mung beans. There weren't many bowls of mung beans in the basket, she said as she walked. This child was one of the 5 children who had just been kidnapped. In this poor mountainous area, mung bean soup was only taken out during festivals. Grab a small handful of mung bean soup and put it into porridge that had more water than rice. It was a fresh luxury. Today, the child's mother cooked all the mung beans. Her generosity was indescribable. The child's arrival made the few people who were talking just now shut their mouths. The child also obediently took out bowls of mung bean soup from her basket and handed them to everyone. The child was reluctant to eat it herself and gave all the delicious food to others. At this time, when the child handed the mung bean soup to Wu Zhizhi slapped the bowl of mung bean soup in the child's hand to the ground. Don't give it to me. I don't know how many people have eaten this bowl. There are so many bacteria on it. It's so dirty. Also, have you washed your hands? Has your mother washed her hands? I think you people here are so poor that you can't even afford to wash your hands. It's so dirty. Chapter 2088. Wu Zhizhi was already full of anger, and when the child handed her the mung bean soup, Wu Zhizhi's anger flared up. He really King sent himself to her door to be abused. After Wu Zhizhi smashed the bowl the child handed over, the child stared at the mung bean soup on the floor and licked his lips greedily. Big sister, it's not good to waste food like this. None of your business. Anyway, I won't eat the junk food you give me. It's all germs. I'm such a noble person, how can I eat food like this? Wu Zhizhi yelled at the child. At that moment, Yun Jian, who had been silent all this while, narrowed her eyes slightly. Noble? Yun Jian sneered mockingly. What? Isn't that the case? Wu Zhizhi replied confidently. You should be the one with germs all over your body, Yun Jian suddenly said to Wu Zhizhi. What do you mean? Wu Zhizhi instantly had an ominous feeling after hearing that. In the next second, Yun Jian turned on her phone and pressed on the button twice. Everyone heard the conversation between Shen Qingjiang and another boy from Yun Jian's phone. That conversation made Wu Zhizhi collapse on the spot. Qingjiang, are you really not going to accept treatment? This was the boy who was talking to Shen Qingjiang. Is treatment useful? Anyway, I'm going to King die anyway. If I can drag one down to hell with me, it's one more. Hehe, I was King harmed by someone back then. This was what Shen Qingjiang said. How long have you been aware that you have AIDS? Not long. After ked Wu Zhizhi and confirmed that she also has AIDS, I'll ck other girls. Even if I die, I'll drag them down with me. Hehe. You're really not kind. The girls who met you are really unlucky. I'm not kind. That's because I was forced. ck. Ked that be tch Wu Zhizhi so many times. This time, I'll definitely infect her with AIDS. That be tch didn't ask for a condom when she did it with you? Tsk, I was just bluffing a little. Why didn't you obediently let me shoot you in? From the voice that came from Yun Jian's phone, everyone present could naturally tell that the person on the phone was Shen Qingjiang. As for who that boy was, no one cared. The main thing is the breaking news in this phone call. No. Impossible. Qingjiang, that's impossible, right? How could you? How could you? Then how could you be me? After hearing this phone call, Wu Zhizhi's head exploded. She looked at Shen Qingjiang in panic and shook her head. She was so scared that her lips instantly turned pale. Hearing this news was even scarier than being frightened by Yun Jian. AIDS can be transmitted through sexual contact, blood, and mother to child. In other words, he had sex with someone who had AIDS. Or some people would go to small places to donate blood. The syringe used to draw blood from an AIDS patient and then draw your blood, which would cause an infection. Or it could be that the mother contracted AIDS and passed it on to the next generation. These were the three most common ways of AIDS transmission. And the reason why Wu Zhizhi was so scared was because AIDS had a relatively long incubation period after infection. Usually, it would take 7 to 10 years for the infection to occur. After the infection, the survival period would not exceed 2 years. To put it bluntly, contracting AIDS was equivalent to having half a foot in the coffin. There was no doubt that one would die. Even now, there was no cure for AIDS, much less now in 2002. Now was not the time for Wu Zhizhi to be calculative about her and Shen Qingjiang being found out. She looked at Shen Qingjiang and trembled all over. She couldn't have been infected with AIDS, right? Shen Qingjiang suddenly heard the conversation between him and his buddy from Yun Jian's phone. He was stunned. When he came back to his senses, he looked at Yun Jian with a nonchalant expression. Hehe, since I've been found out, then I have nothing to hide. But why do you have the chat records between me and my buddy? Shen Qingjiang was bewildered. Why would Yun Jian have the chat records between him and his buddy? Just as he asked this, he saw Yun Jian, who was standing in front of him, wave the phone in her hand and say coldly in front of everyone. I forgot to tell you that I'm a hacker too, eh? Chapter 2089. Yun Jian was a hacker? The crowd's expression changed when they heard Yun Jian's words. She was a hacker. However, with Yun Jian's identity as New Cruise's director, the crowd was not too surprised. After all, there were different levels among hackers. If she was just a regular hacker, it would not be surprising. Moreover, Yun Jian graduated from the University of Electronic Science and Technology of China. It would not be strange if she knew how to hack. At this moment, the crowd was shocked that Shen Qingjiang was an AIDS patient. Shen Qingjiang, why you did it on purpose? Did you deliberately infect me with AIDS? You're worse than a beast. Go to hell, ah. I don't want to die. I don't want to die. Wu Zhizhi was scared out of her wits when she found out the truth. She cursed at Shen Qingjiang. If no one stopped her, she would have pounced on Shen Qingjiang to kill him. Of course, all of this had nothing to do with Yun Jian. She had merely overheard Shen Qingjiang's conversation with his brother. She was surprised when she first heard it. She did not expect Wu Zhizhi, who cared so much about hygiene and safety, to end up like this. Of course, Wu Zhizhi deserved to be punished for her sins. At the same time, she had to remind her that it was better for girls to have self-respect and self-respect. Otherwise, more sinister and terrifying things in this world would befall you. Wu Zhizhi was picked up by the car sent by her father on the same day. Naturally, Shen Qingjiang could not stay in Wuzhen any longer. Wuzhen was much more peaceful after the two of them left. Qing Yu and Zhang Zhifan left Wuzhen on the same day as well. 2 days later, the money donated by new crews to the poor mountainous areas all over the country was distributed. Wuzhen and the few villages around it received quite a sum of money that could be used to improve their families' living conditions. Wuzhen Primary School received a decent amount of capital as well. On this day, the principal bought some textbooks and a new backpack for each of the children in Wuzhen Primary School. This made the children so happy that they all jumped up and down with their school bags in hand. Oh! Yay! We have new backpacks! We have new backpacks! That's great! I want Ultraman's bag! That little bunny bag is mine! The principal and the female teacher couldn't help but smile when they saw the children picking out their new school bags and jumping around happily. When Yun Jian saw this, her eyes narrowed slightly. The next morning was Saturday, the earliest morning of the day. There were 2 more days before Yun Jian had to go back to school. The 7 days of volunteer teaching in the countryside also came to an end on the weekend. The children still didn't know that the big brothers and sisters who brought them laughter were leaving. At that time, the children didn't have to go to school. She dragged Yun Jian and the others to the hill where the sheep were grazing. The surrounding children were playing with a group of university students. Yun Jian was lying on the lawn bathed in the weak morning sunlight. At the side, there were 4 or 5 sheep bleating as they surrounded Yun Jian. The sunlight was very glaring. Yun Jian was mesmerized by it. She closed her eyes to feel the weak and glaring rays of the morning sun. Suddenly, a black shadow blocked the glaring sunlight. Yun Jian opened her eyes and saw a handsome face. This handsome face had sharp eyebrows, a pair of sharp eyes, and those thin lips. Coupled with his perfect facial features, Yun Jian couldn't take her eyes off him. Yun Jian was about to speak when Ce suddenly bent down and pressed her down on the lawn. His tall body pressed against hers and he blocked her mouth with his thin lips. There were a few sheep bleating nearby, so Liang Xiumin, Mu Yao, and the others who were chasing and playing with a group of children didn't notice Ce's sudden appearance. They also didn't realize that Ce had appeared out of nowhere and pressed Yun Jian down on the lawn. It was an action that could easily be misunderstood. After kissing the little mouth that he had been longing for, Ce finally let go of Yun Jian and bent down to her ear. His handsome face that was infuriating yet infuriatingly handsome wore a mischievous grin. "Xiao Jian, you're so beautiful. How I want to become one with you right here, so that you can never leave my sight." Ce's words made Yun Jian blush. She was about to pinch him. At this moment, a sheep beside him bleated comfortably, "Ba." Then, the sheep shook its body and pooped out a pile of feces. Ce and Yun Jian were beside them. The moment they heard the sheep bleat, Ce grabbed Yunjian's waist and rolled to the side, avoiding the sheep's poop. Just as they dodged the sheep's poop, a child suddenly saw Ce hugging Yunjian's slim waist and rolling on the lawn. The child clapped his hands and exclaimed innocently, "Look, look! Big brother is hugging big sister and rolling around on the lawn. He he he. It's so fun." His exclamation made everyone around them, including the children and university students from Jiang City, turn to look. Chapter 2090. After avoiding that pile of sheep poop, Ce and Yunjian were exposed in front of everyone. Ce was hugging Yunjian's slender waist and didn't hide himself in Yunjian. Hence, everyone saw Ce hugging Yunjian and rolling around on the grass. A few university girls inadvertently caught a glimpse of Ce's handsome face and then looked at Ce and Yunjian rolling around on the grass in an extremely ambiguous position. They couldn't help but blush. Ce, who was discovered, didn't panic at all. On the contrary, he hugged Yunjian and rolled around on the grass before pulling her up. It was as if he hadn't done anything bad just now. Who is this man? There's actually such a handsome man in this world? Could he be her boyfriend? When the girls saw Ce's handsome face, they couldn't react for a long time. However, Liang Xiumin and Mu Yao walked over with a few children. "Yunjian, your boyfriend actually came all the way here to look for you. You're so lucky. You're not like my boyfriend, who only comes when I pay," Liang Xiumin complained. Liang Xiumin's boyfriend, Jin Yu, was a gangster who lived near Jiang City. He had met Liang Xiumin in Jiang City. Jin Yu was one of the people Yunjian and the others had met at the beach in Zhou Mountain. Jin Yu's boyfriend was considered a weirdo. It was one thing for a grown man to come looking for Liang Xiumin and ask her for travel expenses, but he even brought a group of men and women with him. He even wanted Liang Xiumin to pay for their travel expenses, meals, and even the money for their entertainment. He was a typical gigolo. "We're already married," Ce frowned and explained when he heard Liang Xiumin say that he was Yunjian's boyfriend. When Liang Xiumin heard that, she chuckled and said, "I know." Then, she nudged Yunjian with her hand and revealed a smile that said, "You're so lucky." This time, Ce didn't take out her marriage certificate or the fake pregnancy test report. Mu Yu, on the other hand, was stunned when she heard Liang Xiumin's words. Then, she asked Liang Xiumin in a daze, "Junior, you have a boyfriend?" "Yeah, what's wrong?" Liang Xiumin didn't notice the displeasure in Mu Yaoyao's tone as she replied, "Nothing." In a place where no one could see, Mu Xiao clenched her fists and gritted her teeth as she spoke. Yunjian saw Mu Yaoyao's actions, but she didn't say anything. At this moment, Yunjian's hand was being held tightly by Ce. At this moment, someone tugged at the hem of her clothes. Yunjian glanced sideways and saw Lu Ying, who was only as tall as her waist, tugging at her clothes as she stared at her with her large, dark eyes. Before Yunjian could speak, Lu Ying spoke first. She looked at Yunjian and then at Ce and asked, "Are big sister and big brother going to have children in the future?" Lu Ying really didn't stop until she said something shocking. After he said that, the people around him pretended to cough a few times. However, Lu Ying really didn't know what was wrong with her words. She just stared at Yunjian with her large eyes and waited for Yunjian's reply. Yunjian blinked. Before she could say anything, Liang Xiumin reached out and gently flicked Lu Ying's forehead and said, "Yes, yes, yes. They're in that relationship." When Lu Ying heard Liang Xiumin's words, she suddenly clapped her hands and said, "That's great. Big brother and big sister are so beautiful. Big brother and big sister's children will be especially beautiful in the future." After Lu Ying said this, a little boy next to her added, "But to have a baby, don't they have to fight before they can get pregnant? My mother and father fought and I had a little brother." "Nonsense. My father said that to have a baby, it's fine as long as they eat and sleep well. There's no need to fight at all. A little girl with 2 ponytails stood out and retorted. But why did Dong Dong from the neighboring village say that as long as you kiss, you'll have children? He also said that boys and girls sitting together in class can get pregnant too. Chapter 2091. Regarding the question of how to have a child, the children all talked about it. A group of innocent children, discussing how to have a child, the result of the discussion really made people not know whether to laugh or cry. The few university students standing by the side listened to the discussion of this group of children and felt awkward for a moment. However, the children were completely unaware of how shocking their words were. Hearing this child say that boys and girls would get pregnant when they sat together in class, a 10-year-old girl suddenly burst into tears. Wah 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 wah. Then I've been desk mate with a boy for a year, am I pregnant now? Am I going to have a child soon? I don't want to wah wah wah. After this little girl cried, the surrounding girls were all shocked by the little girl's words, and perhaps affected by the atmosphere. One by one, they all cried out, "Ah! Does that mean I'm pregnant too? I don't want to be pregnant. Wah wah wah, I've also been desk mate with a boy for 2 years, will I have 2 children? I don't want to. Wah wah wah, Mom said that if I get pregnant before marriage, I'll be drowned in a pig cage." In less than 2 minutes, the group of children who were running and jumping around just now, all the girls stood in place and cried. The boys looked at the girls in a daze, not knowing whether to comfort them or not. This scene progressed so quickly that it surprised the group of university students present. Why are they all crying? Liang Xiaomin looked at the scene in front of her in a daze, not knowing what to do. You won't get pregnant. Just when the group of girls was crying and gasping for breath, and the surrounding people didn't know what to do, Yun Jian's voice suddenly sounded. Perhaps this voice had a trace of the majesty of a king. The group of girls instantly stopped crying. Sister, is it true? Lu Ying wiped her tears, raised her head and looked at Yun Jian with a pair of big black eyes, blinked her eyelashes that were still stained with tears, took 2 deep breaths, and asked. Of course it's true, I never lie. Yun Jian's red arc raised, and she smiled faintly. Perhaps Yun Jian's words had a certain charm, the girls present really stopped crying. Although there was a small interlude, everyone had a great time in the morning and afternoon. Ce didn't leave at night, and stayed at Lu Ying's house. Originally, Liang Xiaomin and Yun Jian slept on the same bed, but Liang Xiaomin consciously slept in the same room as Lu Ying and Lu Shi at night. Ce didn't do anything strange to Yun Jian since they were in someone else's house. They woke up early the next morning for the return journey. Hearing that the big sisters and big brothers were leaving, the children were already awake when the sun was still up. Putting on the big cotton-padded jackets they bought with New Cruise's donation, they stood by the road in Wutown to bid farewell to Yun Jian and her friends. The children's thin bodies were no longer cold, and they were no longer wearing thin clothes that were as thin as if they were naked. Although the children didn't know how they got pregnant, they knew that it was all thanks to Yun Jian that they were able to wear the big cotton-padded jackets, new school bags, new textbooks, and new stationery. Sister, will you come back to see us again? The children stood on the muddy road that led to the city in Wutown, their little eyes staring at Yun Jian, their eyes filled with longing. Yes. Yun Jian nodded as she looked at the stars in the children's eyes. Sister, you said that mommy will come back, right? Lu Ying couldn't bear to see Yun Jian leave, so she hugged her brother tightly and stared at Yun Jian with her little eyes. Yun Jian was silent for 2 seconds before replying Lu Ying, yes. She didn't know if Lu Ying's mother would come back, but she knew that she couldn't let a child's longing for their mother die. Sister, thank you. As Lu Ying spoke, she seemed to have recalled something. She took out a wrinkled old photo and handed it to Yun Jian with trembling hands. Sister, this is the only photo of mommy that I have. I'm giving it to you. Sister, you don't have to look for mommy on purpose. Just help me tell mommy if you accidentally see her. Ying isn't mommy's burden anymore. Ying can take care of little brother and grandma. Ying doesn't need mommy to take care of us. But Ying misses mommy. Little brother misses mommy too. He wants mommy to come home and see Ying. Sister, can I, Chapter 2092. Lu Ying begged Yunjian in the most tactful tone she could muster. As she spoke, she handed the black and white photo that was so old that the face could barely be seen to Yunjian with trembling hands. Lu Ying's father had passed away, her grandmother was paralyzed, her younger brother was still young, and her mother had run away with someone a long time ago. Her only wish now was to see her mother again. As for this old photo, to Lu Ying, it was the only thing she remembered her mother's appearance. Now, she handed the most precious old photo to Yunjian because she trusted Yunjian. She believed that Yunjian would help her keep an eye on her mother, so Lu Ying still gave the photo to Yunjian. However, Yunjian took the old photo from Lu Ying's hands in front of everyone and then glanced at the people in the old photo. There were 5 people in the old photo. An old lady, a young man, and a young woman. The young man and the young woman were holding 2 children in their arms. It was not difficult to tell that the young man and young woman were Lu Ying's father and mother. The young man and young woman in the photo were smiling brightly. The man was handsome, and the woman was beautiful. Both of their faces were filled with happiness. Although the photo was old, Lu Ying had kept it very well. This was probably the best memory of Lu Ying's life. Yunjian glanced at the young woman in the photo and returned the photo to Lu Ying. Lu Ying took the photo that Yunjian returned to her in a daze. She was pleasantly surprised and disappointed. She was pleasantly surprised because the photo was back in her hands. Lu Ying would look at the photo every night and think of her mother's arms when she fell asleep. Now that she had given the photo to Yunjian, it meant that Lu Ying's only spiritual support was gone. She was disappointed because her sister also had her own life. It was only right for her to return the photo to her and not help her convey these words when she saw her mother. Her small eyes rolled around twice. Lu Ying could not help but tear up. "Mom, where are you? Ying and her brother can be good. Ying can go and earn money for you to spend. As long as you come back and return to Ying and her brother's side." All of this made Lu Ying feel despair. She knew that her mother had left for so long because she did not want her and her brother anymore. Is there no hope left? Just as Lu Ying lowered her head dejectedly and tears fell from the corners of her eyes, a hand touched her head. Lu Ying was shocked. She raised her head and saw Yunjian's exquisite and beautiful face. "I've already memorized your mother's appearance. Now, tell me your mother's name, and I'll help you find her." Yunjian's words were like an arm reaching out for Lu Ying in a desperate situation, causing the 11-year-old child to burst into tears instantly. "Thank you, elder sister. Thank you, elder sister." Lu Ying bowed to Yunjian several times. She almost knelt down to Yunjian. Lu Ying then told Yunjian her mother's name and age. As soon as he finished speaking, the bus driver sent by the school began to urge the university students from Jiangxing City to board the bus and return to school. Ce also took the school bus back to Jiangxing City with Yunjian. Wu Zhizhi and Shen Qingjiang had left first, so there was an empty seat on the bus. There was no harm in having Ce. When they had just boarded the bus, Yunjian could still feel that Lu Ying was staring at her closely. Her small eyes were filled with hope. Seeing this, Yunjian pursed her red lips. The second before she boarded the bus, she left Lu Ying with these words, "I'll definitely help you find your mother. I never lie." Although Lu Ying was still a child, she had been very good to Yunjian and Liang Xiumin. She had even given up her blanket to Yunjian and Liang Xiumin in the beginning, even if it meant that she would freeze. The reason why Yunjian could make her subordinates submit to her wholeheartedly was that she, Yunjian, had always been a vengeful person. She would definitely do what she said. Chapter 2093. Yun Jian's words gave Lu Ying hope. It had been a long time since anyone had been so nice to her. Lu Ying had an indescribable feeling. In the end, the bus drove away under the gaze of Lu Ying and the rest. Yun Jian, who was sitting in the bus, saw Lu Ying and her brother Lu Shi chasing the bus for a long distance through the mirror. The siblings could not catch up with the bus until they reached a rugged mountain road. Lu Ying and Lu Shi's gazes carried a trace of pleading. At this moment, an 11-year-old and a 9-year-old had placed all their hopes and future on Yun Jian. They hoped that in the near future, their mother would hear their pleas and come home. The bus took the group back the way it came. The bus drove very slowly. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes. At the entrance of Wuxia town, she saw the two old ruffians who had tried to stop Yun Jian and Liang Xiumin in the bamboo forest. The two old ruffians were limping. Although they survived, it seemed like they would have to limp for the rest of their lives. Of course, this was their retribution. Yun Jian did not expect the two old ruffians to survive. In spite of it, Yun Jian was no longer interested in how the two old ruffians managed to survive. After the bus left Wuxia town and drove into the city, Yun Jian directly sent the information of Lu Ying's mother to the Koxia mercenaries intelligence group. It was already evening when they returned to Jiangcheng. The next morning, CE returned to an Hun organization. The next afternoon, Yun Jian and Zhu Huili had lunch in the cafeteria. While they were eating, her phone suddenly received a message. She took it out and saw that it was from Diani. The content of the message was very simple. She had found the whereabouts of Lu Ying's mother. After lunch, Yun Jian stuffed her phone into her pocket and told Zhu Huili that she would be taking 3 days off. Zhu Huili responded. She wasn't surprised by this at all. After calling her homeroom teacher, Miss Yu, to tell her that she wanted to take 3 days off, Yun Jian walked towards the school gate. Last time, Miss Yu had promised her that as long as she went to the countryside to teach, she could ask for leave whenever she wanted. Miss Yu didn't go back on her word. "Hey, President, you're finally back. We've been waiting for you for the past 2 days." When he reached the school gate, he bumped into Zhou Huntao from the martial arts club. When Zhou Huntao saw Yun Jian, he hurriedly stopped and greeted his brothers before speaking to Yun Jian. Zhou Huntao's brothers were obviously stunned. Could it be that this girl was the legendary new president of the martial arts club? In the next second, Yun Jian's words confirmed their thoughts. I'll take 3 days off. Tell Mo Bufan to continue supervising the training of the members of the club while I'm away. After I return, I'll test the progress of the members of the club one by one. The martial arts competition was just around the corner, and it all depended on one's willpower. Zhou Huntao nodded at Yun Jian's words. After she finished speaking, she walked out of the school. Seeing that Yun Jian had walked far away, one of Zhou Huntao's brothers asked Zhou Huntao, "Huntao, is this the new president of your martial arts club?" At first, Zhou Huntao's brothers couldn't believe it. That girl was the legendary new president of the martial arts club, Yun Jian, who had directly charged into Dragon City University's martial arts club and beaten up Wu Ren. They thought that Yun Jian would grow up to look like a tough girl, with a rough and fierce body. But she was too King beautiful. However, in front of his brothers, Zhou Huntao proudly and confidently said, "That's right, she's the new president of our martial arts club. With her, we'll definitely get first place in this year's martial arts competition." Chapter 2094. Zhou Huntao's confident words caused an uproar among his brothers. Although there was a trace of disbelief in their hearts. Could such a skinny body really lead the members of the martial arts club to win the first place in this year's martial arts competition? But at this moment, no one said anything about doubts. The next day. Ji Province, Guang City. Guang City was a first-tier city located in Ji Province. Its economy was developing fast, and the people's living standards were high. Located in the suburbs of Guang City, there was a tall villa. The villa was surrounded by people holding iron rods. This group of people looked like ruffians from head to toe. They walked back and forth to the left and right as if they were guarding someone in the villa. In the villa, in a large room, a lady sat in front of a makeup mirror. She fiddled with her hair in a daze, and her face was getting more and more haggard. With a creak, the door was opened and then closed. This lady was completely unaffected by the door opening and closing. She continued fiddling with her hair in a daze, as if she was an emotionless doll. It wasn't until the door was closed and locked that the lady was awakened from her reverie by the sound of a woman's voice, which was as pleasant as the sound of nature. You abandoned your family and children, leaving your son and daughter to live a life worse than pigs and dogs in the poor mountainous area. Wang Xiaofan, have you ever felt the slightest bit of remorse? The person who came was Yun Jian. And Wang Xiaofan was the mother who abandoned Lu Ying and Lu Shi. When Wang Xiaofan heard Yun Jian's words, she suddenly stood up from the bench in front of the makeup table. She turned around and stared at Yun Jian in shock. Who are you? How do you know about Ying and Xiao Shi? This place is heavily guarded, and there are people guarding the door. How did you get in? And how are Ying and Xiao Shi now? Lu Ying and Lu Shi's mother, Wang Xiaofan, married the boss of F province's largest underground gang, Hong Tiniu. A woman who abandoned her family and children was the most disgusting existence in the world. But when Wang Xiaofan heard about Lu Ying and Lu Shi, she looked worried. You don't need to know who I am. You just need to know that your children are not living well. Yun Jian said. Hearing Yun Jian say that Lu Ying and Lu Shi were not doing well, Wang Xiaofan covered her face and cried softly, Ying, little Shi, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. After a while, when Wang Xiaofan calmed down, Yun Jian learned the truth from Wang Xiaofan. Wang Xiaofan didn't abandon her family. A few years ago, when Wang Xiaofan and her husband entered the city, they accidentally met the boss of the biggest underground gang in Ji province, Hong Tiniu. Wang Xiaofan was beautiful. Even now, her beauty had not been worn down by time. At that time, Hong Tiniu had used his authority to forcefully take Wang Xiaofan away. Wang Xiaofan and her husband were afraid that Hong Tiniu would hurt their child, so they lied to Lu Ying and Lu Shi that Wang Xiaofan had run away with another man. Even their grandmother did not know the truth. After all, with Hong Tiniu's power, if ordinary families like them wanted to forcefully go against him, they might not even be able to keep their lives. Wang Xiaofan thought she would never be able to go back in this lifetime. However, Hong Tiniu knew that Wang Xiaofan's heart was not here, so he had been locking Wang Xiaofan in the villa for many years, not allowing her to take half a step out of the villa. When she heard that Lu Ying and Lu Shi's father had passed away in an accident, Wang Xiaofan's face was lifeless, and her tears could not stop flowing. Don't cry, come with me. Yun Jian saw the situation and said. Go? No, I can't go. Young lady, I'm already very grateful that you told me what happened at home. I can't implicate you. Hong Tiniu is a ruthless person. I don't know how many people have died in his hands. I'm afraid. Wang Xiaofan was afraid that she would implicate Yun Jian, so she shook her head in pain. Yun Jian's eyebrows, which had just calmed down, suddenly raised slightly. Before Wang Xiaofan could finish speaking, she suddenly smiled. Looks like you have to leave even if you don't want to. When Wang Xiaofan heard that, she didn't know what she meant. In the next second, there were footsteps and shouts outside the door. Quick, quick, quick. Quick, go to Madam's room. Someone has broken into Madam's room. Not long after, a tall and strong middle-aged man with average looks kicked open the door. Seeing that Yun Jian had no intention of hiding and was standing there openly, the middle-aged man glared at Yun Jian and threatened. Young lady, you've got guts. How dare you break into my, Hong Tiniu's, room? Do you not want to be in the underworld anymore? The middle-aged man who had rushed into the room with a group of brothers was the boss of Ji Province's biggest gang, Hong Tinu. Ji Province was the same as Zhe Province, they were both provinces. Hong Tinu was the boss of Ji Province's gang. On a certain level, he was on the same level as Yun Jian, who was a Russian. When he saw Yun Jian's face clearly, he saw that Yun Jian was only an 18-year-old girl. Hong Tinu sneered and said, "Young lady, you're so young, but you've got some skills. You can actually avoid all the surveillance cameras and my brothers. But no matter who you are, you're going to die here today." As the boss of a province's gang, Hong Tinu's aura was naturally strong. "No. It's my fault. I was too bored, that's why I called her here. Let her go, let her go." Wang Xiaofan quickly stood in front of Yun Jian and said to Hong Tinu. Hong Tinu obviously wouldn't let Yun Jian die just like that. The way these beasts dealt with beautiful young ladies was usually to gang rape them before killing them. Wang Xiaofan was so scared that her face turned ashen. Just as the men behind Hong Tinu were smirking at Yun Jian's pretty face and alluring figure, thinking that Yun Jian was already theirs, the men behind Hong Tinu smirked. Yun Jian grabbed Wang Xiaofan's collar and pulled her away. After that, Yun Jian stared straight at Hong Tinu in front of everyone. Her aura that was not inferior to Hong Tinu's was on full display as she curled her lips into a smirk and said something that left everyone dumbfounded. "Is this how the Tiango gang of Province Ji receives me, the Rakshasa, from Russia? Or, Ji Province's Tiango gang is going to officially declare war on Zhe Province's Falcon Hall, eh?" Chapter 2095. Facing Hong Tinu, the leader of the number 1 gang in Province Ji, and his underlings. Yun Jian, who was only 18 years old, did not show any hint of fear or trepidation. On the contrary, she looked straight into Hong Tinu's eyes and said those words in front of everyone without any fear. His words and actions were enough to make Hong Tinu and the group of brothers behind him exclaim in admiration. But what did Yun Jian just say? Rakshasa? Zhe Province's Falcon Hall? Wasn't Rakshasa of Zhe Province's Falcon Hall the terrifying woman who took over a small gang in Zhe Province and developed it into the number 1 gang in Zhe Province in the shortest time possible? It was said that the woman's ability was invincible. Moreover, although Falcon Hall was a gang in the same province as many other gangs, Falcon Hall's ability was much more powerful than the gangs in other provinces. At least now, the gangs in other provinces would take a detour when they heard about Falcon Hall. They would rather take a long detour than fight with Falcon Hall. That was because Falcon Hall's ability was too strong. There were even rumors that Rakshasa would lead Falcon Hall to become the leader of the underground gangs in Country Z sooner or later. But today, an 18-year-old girl stood in front of everyone and called herself Rakshasa, the boss of Falcon Hall? Rakshasa founded Falcon Hall 3 years ago. You weren't even 15 years old 3 years ago, right? Are you going to say that you founded Falcon Hall when you were 15? What a joke. Big brother, this girl is obviously bluffing. Wait until we catch this girl and let our brothers take turns to enjoy her. Then we'll know if she's an imposter or not. He he he. The middle-aged man standing next to Hong Tinu rubbed his hands together and smiled. He squinted his eyes and gestured at Yun Jian's voluptuous breasts from 5 to 6 meters away. This perverted middle-aged man even gestured as if he was grabbing Yun Jian's breasts. Of course, the middle-aged man squinted his eyes and fantasized about it from 5 to 6 meters away. In reality, he was not even 1 meter away from Yun Jian. It was me who had nothing to do, so I called her to my room to chat with me. She didn't do anything. Let her go. Wang Xiaofan was so scared that she lost her composure. She was scared because she was afraid that Yun Jian would be ruined by Hong Tinu and his group of scum. It wasn't like such a thing had never happened before. When Wang Xiaofan first arrived here, she had met a young lady. At that time, the girl was about Yun Jian's age. She got along well with Wang Cuifan. Later, when she heard about Wang Cuifan's background, she planned an escape for her. In the end, Wang Cuifan and the little girl were caught. The little girl had been gang-raped to death by Hong Tinia's group of scum because she had protected Wang Cuifan's escape. Wang Cuifan had seen the little girl die with her own eyes. She would never forget this pain for the rest of her life. Therefore, at this moment, Wang Cuifan was afraid that Yun Jian would be killed by her. Moreover, he had died in such a humiliating manner. Since then, the number of guards guarding Wang Cuifan in the villa increased. "Oh, madam, why are you in such a hurry? He. Not only did this little brat cover for your escape, she even pretended to be the boss of Falcon Hall, Rakshasa. Just based on these 2 points alone, how could we let her go?" He. That vulgar middle-aged man rubbed his hands and looked at Yun Jian. His saliva was about to drip from the side of his mouth. "Speaking of which, madam, you can only blame yourself for this. You said that we gang-raped that little girl to death because of you. Today, we don't know where you found this little girl from. Aren't you asking us to make a move on her?" As the vulgar middle-aged man spoke, he had already walked towards Yun Jian. At that moment, Yun Jian's eyes darkened. She, who had been silent earlier, suddenly spoke up. "You guys once killed a little girl who was about my age?" Little brat, the word killed doesn't sound good. That little girl was too weak to stand up to the wind. After we took turns king her a few times, she died. Who can you blame? But don't worry, little brat. You're so beautiful. We can't bear to let you die. The vulgar middle-aged man had already walked within 3 meters of Yun Jian and was speaking vulgarly in front of everyone. However, just as he stepped within 3 meters of Yun Jian, a gunshot rang out. Unknowingly, Yun Jian was holding a silver pistol in her hand. The gun in her hand was so fast that before anyone could react, the bullet had already shot out and pierced through the vulgar middle-aged man's head. A second before the middle-aged man's eyes widened and he lost consciousness, Yun Jian spoke in front of Hong Tiniu and everyone else with an indifferent expression. "Since you can't bear to let me die, then I'll have to trouble you to die, eh?" Chapter 2096. When the crowd finally reacted, they did not see the perverted middle-aged man assaulting Yun Jian. Instead, they saw a bright bullet piercing through his head and nailing him to the wall behind him. The sleazy middle-aged man widened his eyes and stared at Yun Jian for 2 seconds with narrowed pupils. 2 seconds later, the perverted middle-aged man fell to the ground and stopped breathing after Yun Jian finished her sentence. F***CK. This woman killed the 3rd leader of the Tiango gang. One of the men behind Hong Tiniu shouted with his eyes wide open. The dead perverted middle-aged man was Lin Bulang, the 3rd leader of the biggest gang in Province G, the Tiango gang. Lin Bulang was the 3rd leader of the Tiango gang. He was lustful and spent every night with beautiful women. He did not care about the Tiango gang's affairs. Therefore, Lin Bulang's first thought when he saw Yun Jian was his perverted thoughts. Everyone was shocked that Yun Jian had taken out a gun and killed Lin Bulang. At the same time, Wang Cuifan, who thought that she would kill Yun Jian, was shocked too. The young lady carried a gun with her. The villa was heavily guarded. If Yun Jian could enter the villa without being noticed, it meant that she was not an ordinary person. Wang Cuifan did not even know who Yun Jian was when she said that she was the boss of Zhe Province's Falcon Hall, Luo Sha. However, the scene of Yun Jian taking out a gun and killing Lin Bulang caused an uproar. "Boss, this young lady has guts. She dared to kill the 3rd leader in front of you. Brothers, let's kill her." A man standing behind Hong Tiniu smiled happily when he saw Lin Bulang dead. However, he pretended to be furious that Lin Bulang was killed by Yun Jian. The man was Song Qing, who was promoted by Hong Tiniu after the Tiango gang became the biggest gang in Province G. Other than the boss Hong Tiniu, there were also the second and third leaders in the Tiango gang. Now that Lin Bulang, the third leader, was dead, Song Qing, who had always been dissatisfied with Lin Bulang's beauty, was surprised and delighted. Another reason was that once the third master Lin Bulang died, the position of the third master would be reselected. He, Song Qing, was determined to win this position. Song Qing was thinking of rushing forward to kill Yun Jian before Lin Bulang died. That way, he would be able to increase his chances of competing for the position of the third master in the future. Hong Tiniu narrowed his eyes and waved his hand at Song Qing, signaling him to stop. Then, he fixed his gaze on Yun Jian. Falcon Hall's boss Rakshasa? Do you know the consequences of impersonating Falcon Hall's boss, Rakshasa? Hong Tiniu was a smart man. He tried to test Yun Jian. He didn't have any real ability or an imposing aura when he faced problems. He was making a fuss over the death of a member of his own sect. How could such a person become the leader of the biggest gang in Ji province? I don't want to know the consequences. I only know one thing. Today, I will take Wang Xiaofan and leave. Anyone who stands in my way will die. Yun Jian looked straight into Hong Tiniu's eyes fearlessly as he said those words. You said you want to take my Xiaofan away? Then today, even if you are Rakshasa, you won't be able to leave this place. Hong Tiniu's face changed when he heard that Yun Jian wanted to take Wang Xiaofan away. Hong Tiniu waved his hand and shouted to his brothers behind him, set up the Tiango gang's inescapable net. Even if she is Rakshasa, she won't be able to escape today. The Tiango gang's inescapable net was well known throughout the country. It was said that none of the members of the underworld who fought against the Tiango gang had ever escaped from the Tiango gang's inescapable net. Wang Xiaofan's face turned pale when she heard that Hong Tiniu wanted to escape from the inescapable net. Who hadn't heard of the Tiango gang's inescapable net? It was a move that specialized in capturing the strong. Inescapable net? Yun Jian narrowed her eyes when she heard that. She suddenly put away her pistol and stood there empty-handed. She raised her eyebrows and looked at Hong Tiniu. I've never heard of the Tiango gang's inescapable net, but, the inescapable net that you speak of that is capable of trapping me, I would like to give it a try, eh? Chapter 2097. A net that could trap Yun Jian? Interesting. Yun Jian raised her eyebrows. Yun Jian's words made Hong Tiniu slightly nervous. Had she not heard of the Tiango gang's net that was well known throughout the country? Was she not afraid? But due to his confidence in the Tiango gang's net, Hong Tiniu narrowed his eyes and looked at Yun Jian. He smiled and said to Song Qing, who was standing behind him, Song Qing, immediately set up the net. Today, I want her to be unable to escape. The net that Hong Tiniu spoke of was actually to wear down the opponent's stamina. When the opponent's strength could not keep up, the net would capture the opponent in one fell swoop. There would be a time when everyone would run out of stamina. For example, let's say you fought with someone. The first time you won, you immediately fought with another person after you won. At this time, your stamina would have been depleted from the first fight. Hence, when you fought with the second person, your stamina would be at a disadvantage. If you won against the second person, you would continue to fight with the third and fourth person. Then, when your stamina was depleted, even if the opponent was a child, they would be able to stab you to death. This was the true face of Hong Tiniu's Tiango gang's net. And Hong Tiniu was not stupid. Compared to many people before him, he was much smarter. If one thought that Hong Tiniu only found ordinary people, then one would be gravely mistaken. Hong Tiniu could afford to hire a high-level assassin, but he used this sum of money to hire over 100 low-level assassins from around the world. With over 100 low-level assassins working together to deal with one person, no matter how strong that person was, there would be a time when their stamina would be depleted. Hong Tiniu's net referred to the 100 low-level assassins that he hired over a long period of time to deal with one person. This was the Tiango gang's biggest trump card. Hearing Hong Tinyu's words, Yun Jian's eyes narrowed even more. Hong Tinyu. You can't do this to her. If you dare to do this to her, I'll kill myself. I'll commit suicide for you to see. Wang Cuifan panicked. She didn't want to see another tragedy happen. Stealing her heart, Wang Cuifan rushed to the side and smashed a vase in the room. She picked up the broken pieces of the vase and stuck them to her neck. Let her go. I'll stay, or I'll die in front of you right now. Wang Cuifan stretched her hand that was holding the broken vase towards her neck. Cuifan, you. Seeing this, Hong Tinyu sighed. Hong Tinyu truly liked Wang Cuifan. Otherwise, he wouldn't have used his power to threaten Wang Cuifan after falling in love with her at first sight. If Hong Tinyu didn't truly like Wang Cuifan, after getting Wang Cuifan, he should have lost interest in Wang Cuifan long ago. Who cared if she left or stayed? But why did he order people to protect Wang Cuifan? He was afraid that Wang Cuifan would leave him. Cuifan, put it down. Put it down and I'll let her go. Hong Tinyu was afraid that Wang Cuifan would really take things too hard, so he spoke softly. When I leave, I'll take her with me. Unexpectedly, Yun Jian walked up to Wang Cuifan in a few steps. She took the broken vase from Wang Cuifan's hand and threw it far away. Moreover, I really want to see the legendary inescapable net of the Tiango gang. As she spoke, Yun Jian turned around and looked at Hong Tinyu and the others. Her cold lips curled up and she smiled faintly. A strange look flashed through her eyes, causing Hong Tinyu and the others to panic for no reason. Cuifan begged for your life but you don't appreciate it. Don't blame me for what happens next. Hong Tinyu clenched his fists and said when he heard Yun Jian's tone that she was determined to take Wang Cuifan away. Boss, the inescapable net has been set up. At this moment, Song Qing walked in from outside and whispered into Hong Tinyu's ear. Hearing this, Hong Tinyu laughed at Yun Jian. Then I'll let you experience the power of the Tiango gang's inescapable net. Even if you're the boss of Zhe Province's Falcon Hall, Luosha, unless you have an impenetrable body, how can you deal with the inescapable net formed by 100 low-level assassins of the Tiango gang? Hong Tinyu's words made Yun Jian squint her eyes. 100 low-level assassins? Hearing Yun Jian's question, Hong Tinyu thought that Yun Jian was afraid. The group of brothers standing behind Hong Tinyu also grinned. So what if she was really the boss of Falcon Hall, Luosha? If she was really the boss of Falcon Hall, then the Tiango gang would be invincible once they killed the boss of Falcon Hall. Just as the group assumed that Yun Jian was scared out of her wits, Yun Jian who stood in front of them smirked and uttered her arrogant words, "You're right, I'm not going to let you go. A mere 100 low-level assassins want to block my path? Tiango gang of Province G, looks like the inescapable net that you're talking about is just this. Chapter 2098. It had to be mentioned that Hong Tinyu was indeed smart. If it was someone else, they would rather hire a powerful high-level assassin than use the money to hire a powerful high-level assassin to hire 100 low-level assassins. But Hong Tinyu did the opposite. In fact, although the strength of a high-level assassin was powerful, there was a limit to his strength. One chopstick was easy to break, but 10 chopsticks were hard to break. 3 cobblers were better than 1 zhuge-liang. These two proverbs were the same as how 100 low-level assassins could compete with a high-level assassin. Even Yun Jian had to be on full alert when facing 100 low-level assassins. But, why did she still say such arrogant words after knowing all these? Yun Jian's words were not for anything else, but because she wanted to challenge herself. Perhaps others would think that she, Yun Jian, was powerful enough to reach this stage. But to Yun Jian, her life had just begun. Endlessly challenging the strong, exploding her strength in desperate situations, that was Yun Jian's life goal. What she wanted was to have a fight to the death with those 100 low-level assassins. Sure enough, Hong Tiniu was quickly enraged. He raged, "Kill! Set up an inescapable net and kill her." After saying that, more than 10 masked assassins rushed in from outside the door, leading the vanguard to surround Yun Jian in a circle from different angles. Yun Jian pushed Wang Xiaofan away. Surrounded by more than 10 masked assassins, she fearlessly took out 2 butterfly knives from her thighs and held them in her hands. These 2 butterfly knives were given to her by Muing. Holding the 2 butterfly knives in her hands, she gently raised the red arc. "Then, let me try and see if you, the 100 low-level assassins, are stronger, or if I am stronger." After her rebirth, she had almost retired from the assassin and agent circle. It had been almost 3 years since she had accepted a mission from the assassin and agent website. Today, the 100 low-level assassins surrounding her reminded her of the past. Seeing Yun Jian holding the 2 butterfly knives in her hands, the low-level assassins who rushed in were slightly stunned. Their pupils constricted, as if they thought of a terrifying person who also used butterfly knives. In spite of it, a dozen low-level assassins charged toward Yun Jian with their weapons in hand. "Kill! Kill her!" In Hong Tiniu's words, "Kill her directly." Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, the assassins held their weapons and rushed towards Yun Jian. Yun Jian, who was supposed to be panicking and looking at the assassins around her, only indifferently turned the butterfly knives so that the blades were below her and held the hilts. More than a dozen assassins came at her from different angles. At the same time, Yun Jian raised a brow and shifted her legs slightly. Abruptly, right in front of Hong Tiniu and the others, she rolled on the ground and stood on one knee agilely with a slight lift of her hand. At this moment, she turned to look at the other assassins. She didn't even look at the position in her hand. The blade of the butterfly knife in her hand had already pierced through the throat of the first low-level assassin who couldn't react in time. One knife to the throat. This speed was so fast that no one present could react in time. This low-level assassin had already fallen to the ground and was no longer breathing. The other low-level assassin's pupils constricted. Just as they were about to attack Yun Jian from the side, they saw Yun Jian kick the low-level assassin's abdomen after his throat was slit. At the same time, she turned around and nimbly moved the butterfly knives at a speed that no one could see clearly. She flashed past the low-level assassins. By the time everyone reacted, Yun Jian had already brushed past a dozen low-level assassins. Her figure was clearly engraved in front of Hong Tiniu and the rest. After her figure flashed past, the low-level assassins all fell to the ground without exception. There weren't many people in the house. The remaining 80 low-level assassins surrounded the door and waited for the second attack. More than 10 low-level assassins died under her blade in 10 seconds. One low-level assassin was killed in 1 second. When Hong Tiniu and the rest in the house reacted, they looked over and saw that the low-level assassins had all fallen to the ground. When they saw clearly that the low-level assassins' necks, right below their chins, in the middle of their throats, were all stabbed in the same spot. The fatal spots of the low-level assassins were all in one place. At this moment, Yun Jian was already standing at the door and looking at the 80 low-level assassins standing outside. At the same time, she was stepping on the corpse of a low-level assassin who couldn't react in time. She held the butterfly knife with both hands and looked like an emissary from hell. The blade was so fast that it killed the low-level assassins without a single drop of blood on the blade. When Hong Tiniu and the rest saw this scene, their hearts suddenly tightened. In 10 seconds, she killed more than 10 low-level assassins. Her figure was like a ghost. Her blade was so fast that it didn't even have a single drop of blood on it. Just who was she? Chapter 2099. Yun Jian had used less than 10 seconds to finish off the first batch of low-level assassins who had rushed into the house with her butterfly knives. Her speed shocked Hong Tiniu and the rest. "Stop! Stop! Stop! I promise you. Hong Tiniu's eyes darted around. Seeing that the situation was not good, he made a prompt decision to stop Yunjian. The commission for hiring 100 low-level assassins was not cheap. With 10 low-level assassins dead, the Tiango gang had suffered a great loss. If Yunjian continued to kill, Hong Tiniu was certain that Yunjian had the ability to kill 100 low-level assassins from the Tiango gang. Then, the Tiango gang would be finished. Such a terrifying woman, she must be the boss of Falcon Hall, Rakshasa. I'll stop just because you asked me to. There's no such thing as a free lunch in this world. Yunjian held the 2 butterfly knives in her hands and walked towards the 80 low-level assassins as she spoke. However, before Yunjian walked out of the door, Hong Tiniu made another concession. I'll let you take my wife away. As long as you let go, I, Hong Tiniu, will promise you 3 things in the future. As long as I can do it, I won't go back on my words. I swear on the name of the Tiango gang. Hong Tiniu's words made Yunjian, who had achieved her goal, put the butterfly knives back into the tight parts of her thighs. Although the people in the underworld were all gangsters, they were the most loyal. Even though they may be distasteful in some ways. Yunjian heard this and looked at Hong Tiniu from the corner of her eyes. She planned to stop now. Remember what you said. After that, she beckoned Wang Cuifan to leave with her. Wang Cuifan was stunned when she left. She did not expect Hong Tiniu to really let go. Although it was good to use the 100 low-level assassins as practice, Yunjian was not stupid enough to get herself into trouble. Although the Heavenly Dog gang was beneath her notice, having one more enemy meant that she would have one more person to kick her when she was down one day. When a person was in their prime, they could trample on anyone and treat them like ants. However, there was one thing that they had to remember. If one day they accidentally fell from grace, then the people that they had offended in the past would do everything they could to make them fall into hell. As for you, who is in dire straits, you might not even be able to resist an ant. Not to mention a group of ants. Yunjian knew this very well, so when she made a move, she either cut the weeds and eliminate the roots to prevent future trouble, or she would stop at a certain point. Seeing that Yunjian had left with Wang Cuifan, Song Qing was still thinking about the position of the 3rd elder. Thus, he went to Hong Tiniu's ear and whispered, "Boss, do you want me to send someone to kill her? Bring Madam back." "Do? Can you do it?" Hong Tiniu pushed Song Qing away. "What about Madam? Are we just going to watch Madam return to that destitute countryside?" Song Qing asked again. "I have my own plans." Hong Tiniu shouted angrily. He kicked the door open and walked out. Yunjian brought Wang Cuifan and rushed back to Wuxian Dali village overnight. When Lu Ying and Lu Shi saw that Wang Cuifan had returned, both of them were stunned. Is it Mom? Sister really brought Mom back? Did we really see Mom?" Lu Ying stood there in disbelief. When Wang Cuifan left, her younger brother Lu Shi was still young. When he saw Wang Cuifan, blood was thicker than water. Relying on his family, he immediately pounced on her. "Mom!" After Wang Cuifan left and her father passed away, Lu Ying, who was only 10 years old, took on the job of supporting the family. When she saw Wang Cuifan, she was stunned. She stood there in a daze and did not move for a long time. Ying. When Wang Cuifan saw Lu Ying, tears flowed down her face. She carried her son Lu Shi, walked over, squatted down, and hugged Lu Ying. Then, she cried bitterly. Yunjian saw this and smiled slightly. Then, she walked out of the door and left some space for her mother and child, who she had not seen for a long time. Just as she stepped out of the door, her phone beeped with a text message. It was from Qin Yiru and the message read, "You're reading this from me. Xiao Jian, come home this weekend. Something happened at home, eh?" Chapter 2100. Qin Yiru did not mention what had happened in the message. Qin Yiru usually did not send messages. If she could send her a message, it meant that something must have happened at home. Yun Jian typed the word, "yes," in the text message editing box on her phone and clicked send. Then, she hid her phone in her trouser pocket and walked to the door. "Mommy, it's Mommy. Mommy is really back. Ying is not dreaming, right? Sister said that Mommy would definitely come back." Sister did not lie to Ying, Lu Ying's trembling voice rang out. There was a trace of disbelief in her trembling voice, but she could not help but believe it. Even though Yun Jian was standing outside the door, she could feel the trembling that came from the depths of Lu Ying's soul. After her mother left and her father passed away, a teenager took on the responsibility of supporting the family. She had to take care of her sick grandmother and take care of her younger brother to and from school. She even had to work in the fields, raise chickens, ducks, and sheep to support the family. This was indescribable for a child who was still 7 or 8 years away from adulthood. Many people went to university empty-handed and had to ask their parents for money to eat and drink well every day. And for a child from a poor mountain area, she did not even have the right to have a full childhood. After Wang Cuifan and the two children cried and calmed down, they insisted that Yun Jian stay for a few days. However, Yun Jian insisted that she leave that night. Wang Cuifan took the two children and sent Yun Jian on the mountain road for a few hours. She bowed and thanked Yun Jian as she sent Yun Jian out of Wuxia. She almost knelt down to Yun Jian. The moment Yun Jian left, Lu Ying looked at her and suddenly asked, "What's the matter? Sister, will you come again in the future?" Although she had only spent a few days with Yun Jian had found the most important mother in her life. To Lu Ying, Yun Jian was different. Maybe. Yun Jian did not give a definite answer. "If Big Sister can't find me, I'll find Big Sister in the future. The teacher said that as long as I study hard, I can leave Wuxia and study in a big city. Sister, I will study hard." Lu Ying seemed to have made up her mind. She shouted at Yun Jian. "Yes." Yun Jian nodded. Then she left Wuxia. The next morning was Friday. The weather on Friday was very hazy. Dark clouds covered the sky, and the wind was a little strong. After December, the weather was gradually approaching winter. In this kind of weather, it seemed as if it would drizzle at any time. In winter, there was rarely thunder. Yun Jian wore a pure white down jacket, which made her complexion look just right. After checking the results of the martial arts club members' training in the morning, Yun Jian took the bus back to Longmen City. On the way back, he returned with Liang Shumin. Liang Shumin, the daughter of a rich family, was ordered by her father to take the bus home in the future. Perhaps it was because she had gone to the poor mountainous area, Liang Shumin's spoiled temper was much toned down. Just as she parted ways with Liang Shumin at the station and returned home, Yun Jian saw Qin Yiru with a white mourning cloth tied around her head and another piece of mourning cloth tied around her hand. Yun Yi was sitting beside her. Yun Yi was dressed similarly to Qin Yiru, but the difference was that Yun Yi had a white mourning dress draped over her. "Xiao Jian, you're back?" Qin Yiru asked tiredly when she saw Yun Jian. Mom, what's wrong?" Yun Jian asked. "Your grandmother passed away. She took a stab for your biological father," Qin Yiru explained. Wearing mourning clothes meant that someone in the family had passed away. Her grandmother was Lu Lanhua and her biological father was Yun Gang. Yun Jian did not feel anything when she heard that. Qin Yiru came over and told Yun Jian earnestly, "Even if she didn't treat us well, she shouldn't have passed away. No matter how bad she was to us when she was alive, it's reasonable for us to send her off. Xiao Yi and I went to the crematorium today and will bury her tomorrow. Xiao Jian, you should go too. She wasn't your biological grandmother, but we were born in the countryside. You'll be laughed at if you don't go." Chapter 2101. After Qin Yiru knew that Yun Jian was not the real Yun Jian, she did not force her to do anything anymore. However, a girl's reputation was very important. Even if Yun Jian already had CE, even if she was not the real Yun Jian. At least, in Qin Yiru's opinion, she did not want to be gossiped about. In the countryside, no matter how the elderly treated you when they were alive, if you were calculative after they passed away, you would be the one who would be gossiped about. Lu Lanhua did not die of illness. Yun Gang was being hunted down by the people who lost the gamble 2 years ago. He had been on the run for 2 years and his debt from the loan sharks had grown. Yun Gang had left Longmen City and Jia Province to hide from the loan sharks for 2 years. He had returned to Longmen City this time to repent and take his old mother away from here to start a new life. He did not expect the loan sharks to rush to his door to collect the debt when they learned of his return. Both parties had a dispute and Lu Lanhua had taken a stab for Yun Gang when one of them stabbed him in the heart. The loan sharks were afraid of a life after all, so they fled in fright when they saw Lu Lanhua taking a stab for Yun Gang. Yun Jian did not feel anything even when she heard this. Lu Lanhua's death didn't bring her any sadness. Yun Jian, on the other hand, only looked at where Yun Yi was not far away. She saw her brother Yun Yi's blank expression, obviously sorrowful. It was not hard to understand. Lu Lanhua favored boys over girls and scoffed at Yun Jian and Qin Yiru, but she was really good to Yun Yi. From the original owner's memories, Lu Lanhua had saved a few days' worth of food for Yun Yi just to buy a piece of meat for him to eat. She wanted to eat something good, so she could save a few days' worth of food for him. To Yun Jian and Qin Yiru, Lu Lanhua was detestable, but to Yun Yi, she was also a good grandmother who had been very kind to her. People were like this. Even if a person treated you badly, that person would still have people they wanted to treat well, and they would also have their own circle of life. Yun Jian could not help sighing. Of course, Yun Jian could not restrain Yun Yi and make Yun Yi not feel sad after Lu Lanhua's death like her. Everyone's way of life was different, and outsiders treated them differently as well. Yun Jian would not restrain anyone from hating someone she detested. There was only one thing she could do. If anyone bullied her, she would pay them back 100-fold. She would not interfere with how the person who bullied her treated others. Coming back to reality, Yun Jian stared at Yun Yi, who was wiping his tears in silence for 2 seconds before asking Qin Yiru, "Does Mom want me to go?" Yes. Not because of anything else, but because of Qin Yiru's words, Yun Jian agreed. Early on Saturday morning, around 4 in the morning, Yun Jian did not have time to go for her morning exercise. She took the car back to Xinjiang town with Qin Yiru and Yun Yi. This time, Qin Yiru had already gotten Gu Yunjian's permission to send Lu Lanhua back. Gu Yunjian was a soldier and was extremely righteous. Naturally, he would not be calculative about this. When sending the deceased up the mountain to be buried, they usually had to wake up early. When Yun Jian and the other two arrived at Xinjiang town, it was already past 6 in the morning. Lu Lanhua's relatives and friends were all there. There were many banquets set up in front of her house. For happy events and funerals in the countryside, they would hold banquets and invite relatives and friends from all walks of life. When Yun Jian arrived, she saw people she did not know. These people naturally had nothing to do with her. When she arrived, it was already past 6 in the morning. There were many banquets set up in front of Yun Gang's house. Relatives from all walks of life took their seats. The ones who cooked and served the dishes were usually old women from the countryside. Most of them were gossipy women. These gossipy women were talkative, but when it came to crucial moments, their hearts were not bad. Yun Jian also sat on a bench in front of a banquet table. Actually, there were many mourners this morning, but those who truly cried in pain for the deceased were in the minority. Usually, distant relatives only came to eat a sumptuous breakfast, lunch, and dinner. For distant relatives, the funeral banquet was also a happy occasion. When Yun Jian sat down, some of the distant relatives around them noticed Qin Yiru's arrival. "Isn't this Yun Gang's ex-wife, Yiru? Why are you here?" A balding middle-aged man looked at Qin Yiru and asked. There was no hint of sadness from Lu Lanhua's death on his face. "She's the child's grandmother after all. I brought the child here to remember her," explained Qin Yiru, who was genuinely saddened by Lu Lanhua's death. "Oh." The balding middle-aged man nodded. A middle-aged woman sitting next to the balding middle-aged man glanced at Yun Jian, then asked Qin Yiru, "Sister, this is your daughter. I remember her name is Yun Jian, right?" Then, without waiting for Qin Yiru's reply, the middle-aged woman turned to Yun Jian and asked, "Daughter, why aren't you sad about your grandmother's death?" Once the middle-aged woman asked, the people around them turned to look. However, Yun Jian lifted her head slightly. Her cold eyes moved as she replied indifferently, "Why should I be sad, eh?" Chapter 2102. Yun Jian's words stunned everyone present. The middle-aged woman was also slightly taken aback, then she said, "Isn't she your biological grandmother? Look at your brother, he's so sad that he can't eat. Everyone dies eventually. It's not a bad thing for her to be released early." Yun Jian interrupted the middle-aged woman and picked up her chopsticks to eat the breakfast on the table. Lu Lanhua was despicable, but Yun Jian wasn't worried or happy about her death. After Yun Gang borrowed money from the loan sharks, he ran away for 2 years. Yun Zheng was protected by Yun Jian, but those loan sharks didn't dare to mess with Yun Zheng, so they splashed chicken blood and released snakes to Lu Lanhua's house every day. Yun Jian had killed so many people. To be honest, even when her younger brother was brutally killed by Lang Sha in her previous life, she didn't feel such extreme despair. She only hated herself for not being strong enough. Perhaps she, Yun Jian, was a cold-blooded person. "Io, little girl, are you cursing your grandmother to die early?" This middle-aged woman was really trying to find a topic. After hearing Yun Jian's words, she immediately raised her voice and spoke loudly enough that everyone at the surrounding tables could hear her voice. Lu Lanhua's group of relatives and friends obviously didn't know Yun Jian's identity. They all thought that Yun Jian was just an ordinary young girl who went to school. "Mom, I'm quite sad about Grandaunt's death. This is her biological grandmother. If she's not sad, isn't she a little too inhumane?" A girl who looked about the same age as Yun Jian sat beside the middle-aged woman. The girl immediately spoke. The grandaunt that the girl was talking about was Lu Lanhua. Without a doubt, this middle-aged woman was the daughter of Lu Lanhua's biological sister, and the girl was the granddaughter of Lu Lanhua's biological sister. They were considered distant relatives. In fact, that was indeed the case. The girl's name was Hong Junhua. She was 17 years old this year and was in high school. This middle-aged woman's name was Chenilan. The bald middle-aged father and son were Hong Junhua's father, Hong Taishan. Yun Jian couldn't find anything related to Hong Junhua's distant relatives in the original owner's memories, but she did find something she heard from Qin Yiru. It was said that Lu Lanhua's sister's daughter, who was also Chenilan's husband, Hong Taishan, had set up a plastic processing factory a few years ago and made a small fortune. Then, he expanded the plastic processing factory and made a big fortune. Now, they had moved to a first-tier city to live. It was said that they had even bought a sports car, which was very high-end. It could be said that he bought a house in a big city, drove a sports car, and lived in a luxurious mansion. Just now, when Hong Taishan talked to Qin Yiru, it was because he wanted to show off in front of his relatives and friends that he had made a fortune. But if he wanted to show off, he had to find someone, right? Hong Taishan started a conversation with Qin Yiru. Of course, before he could finish, his wife, Chenilan, and daughter, Hong Junhua, interrupted him. Chenilan and Hong Junhua were feeling smug, thinking that their family had struck it rich. They had to take advantage of Lu Lanhua's funeral to show off and satisfy their vanity. Only Yun Jian, Qin Yiru, and a few others were sitting with them, so they naturally found a topic to talk about. People from the countryside were most afraid of being badmouthed, especially when a girl's reputation was the most important. At least, Qin Yiru cared a lot about it. It couldn't be helped if she was called old-fashioned. Being born in the countryside, her character was nurtured. Hearing Hong Junhua talk about her daughter like that, Qin Yiru could not help standing up and speaking up. Moreover, there were many gossipy women sitting around them. My Xiao Jian isn't that kind of person. She's quite kind. Then she's inhumane. She doesn't know how to be sad when her grandmother passes away. Hong Junhua cut her off with the tone she used in school, which she used to speak in a foreign tone to her classmates. As she spoke, Hong Junhua was smug, thinking that she was different from the country bumpkins around her. She went to a high school in a big city. What she said was not on the same level as the country bumpkins around her. Just as Hong Junhua finished her smug declaration, Yun Jian had the last mouthful of porridge and put the bowl down. Pressing her lips together, there was not a hint of emotion in her eyes as she spoke coldly, "You're right. You're not the only one who said that I'm inhumane, but you're the only one who's still alive after saying so, eh?" Chapter 21:14. As the old lady spoke, she attracted everyone's attention. At this time, the handsome man in his early 30s had already gotten out of the silver-gray super sports car and was walking over quickly. The middle-aged man, who was in his 40s and had a big beer belly and exuded the aura of a middle-aged man, walked towards the handsome man in his early 30s with his feet splayed outwards. Then, under the gaze of a group of people who were attracted over, she hugged the handsome man who was in his 30s. Come, let me introduce you. This is my younger cousin, Zhang Junyi." When Junyi heard that his aunt passed away, he immediately flew back from New York in Country M to show his filial piety. He came late today, but his thoughts have been received, haha. The middle-aged man chuckled as he introduced the handsome man who was in his early 30s to the crowd. Zhang Junyi was of the same generation as Qin Yiru and the middle-aged man. However, Zhang Junyi's mother gave birth to him later, so he was more than 10 years older than Qin Yiru and the middle-aged man. Zhang Junyi's mother and Yun Zhong were biological siblings, so they could be considered close relatives. However, Zhang Junyi's relationship with the Yun family wasn't particularly good, so he rarely came back. At least, in Yun Jian's memories, there was no memory of this person. However, Zhang Junyi and the original owner were technically related by blood, so they could be considered distant relatives. After the middle-aged man finished speaking, someone immediately stood up and asked him, "Little Zhang, is this your younger cousin, the great scientist who made a fortune?" When they heard that Zhang Junyi had made a fortune and that he had gotten out of a silver-gray supercar, the crowd became excited. This silver-gray supercar was obviously more high-end than Chenilan's and Hong Taishan's, so the crowd quickly became excited. Zhang Junyi's supercar was comparable to Yun Jian's Ferrari in terms of appearance. It was hard to tell which car was more expensive. Those who didn't know the industry could only estimate the value of a car based on its appearance. That's right. This kid is extremely rich now. He deals with international business tycoons and peers all day long. Now, he's settled in New York of Country M and even bought an apartment in New York. His net worth is at least tens of millions. The middle-aged man proudly put his arm around Zhang Junyi's shoulder and helped him brag. Zhang Junyi himself didn't look too smug. Hearing the middle-aged man's words, the surrounding people were stunned again, and they even let out, "Oh, oh," sounds of surprise. Zhang Junyi's arrival not only stunned the surrounding people, but even Chenilan, who had been focusing on Yun Jian, also stared at Zhang Junyi. Chenilan hated meeting relatives who were richer than her. She glared at Zhang Junyi so fiercely that her eyeballs almost fell out. Zhang Junyi's cousin, the middle-aged man, had long been displeased with Chenilan's bragging. Now that he saw Chenilan's glare, he cocked his head proudly and said to Zhang Junyi, "Junyi, didn't you recently discover a female corpse with a group of international experts that won't rot? They said that if the research is done well, you can even get a large sum of money. I even took a picture of it. Let's show it to everyone." Zhang Junyi was involved in scientific research. He studied bizarre events that transcended reality. The middle-aged man's words stunned Zhang Junyi. However, Zhang Junyi still took out a photo from his trouser pocket gracefully. The middle-aged man directly snatched the photo from Zhang Junyi and showed it to everyone present one by one. "Look, this is the female corpse that my cousin and the others recently researched. I heard that there are no signs of decomposition even after 3 or 4 years. It's amazing. If my cousin and the experts can research it, they'll probably get a lot of money." Zhang Junyi had once researched something that others couldn't, so he received a lot of money. Now, his family was worth more than tens of millions. He was considered rich in this era. The middle-aged man's words resounded throughout the venue. Hearing this, Zhang Junyi's eyes darkened and he explained, "We haven't started researching this female corpse yet." Before Zhang Junyi could finish, the middle-aged man showed off the photo in front of everyone. The moment the photo flashed before Yunjian's eyes, Yunjian only glanced at it unintentionally. In the photo was a 16-year-old girl. The girl was wearing a light leather jacket and a pair of tight leather pants. The girl's beautiful figure was wrapped in it, and at the tight part of the leather pants, there was a pistol tied to her thigh. One could tell at a glance that the girl's identity was definitely different from ordinary people. She wore a pair of clean flats and was lying on a wooden bed. She looked so peaceful as if she was just in a deep sleep. When Yunjian saw the girl in the photo, she only glanced at her subconsciously. The next second, her eyes darkened and she grabbed the photo. Her sharp eyes moved fiercely as she asked, "Where did you put the girl in the photo?" The girl in the photo was none other than her real self before her rebirth. She was the physical body of slaying God. Chapter 21:15. Yunjian had sent people to look for her physical body more than once, but it was as if she had disappeared from the world in her previous life. There was no news of her at all. Who would have thought that they would find her body in her previous life here? Zhang Junyi was an international scientific researcher. Although he was only in his 30s, Zhang Junyi's grades were quite good when he was in school. Later, he was recommended to study abroad, and he slowly climbed to where he was today. Moreover, he was considered young and promising in this group of people. He was only in his early 30s, but Zhang Junyi had already researched many things that others could not research in their lifetime. In the field of scientific research, if you researched or discovered something new that had a huge impact on a country or even the whole world, then the reward for such a discovery would be enough to provide for you for the rest of your life. Of course, only outstanding people could research or discover new things. Zhang Junyi's brain allowed him to discover many things, and that was how he became rich. Therefore, Zhang Junyi's relatives and friends respectfully called him a great scientist. As for the female corpse in the photo, it was found by someone. When it was found, the female corpse was still lying quietly on the ground. Her cheeks were rosy, and her skin was glossy and elastic. She looked as if she was just in a deep sleep. The person who found the corpse called the female corpse a few times, but there was no response. Therefore, he reached out to check if the female corpse was breathing. In the end, he found that the female corpse was already dead. He was so scared that he quickly called the police. When the person who performed the autopsy came over, he was surprised to find that the female corpse had not decomposed even though she had been dead for 3 to 4 years. Other than the fact that her heart and brain had stopped working, there were no signs of death at all. Normal corpses would start to decompose in less than half a month after death. However, this female corpse had been dead for 3 to 4 years, and there were no signs of decomposition at all. Moreover, the female corpse was not sealed in a huge instrument that would not decompose. In other words, this was a rather bizarre incident. Therefore, in order to ensure the integrity of the corpse, the experts placed the corpse in a tomb that had just been excavated not long ago and guarded it closely. They also prepared to let the researchers gradually study the female corpse in detail in the near future. Ever since the female corpse was found, it had not been studied yet. When Zhang Junyi's cousin found out about this, the middle-aged man wanted to use this matter to show off in front of his relatives and friends. He instantly mentioned that if this research was successful, his cousin would really make a fortune. Therefore, the middle-aged man boasted in front of everyone. After all, they were surrounded by a group of ignorant country bumpkins. It would be best if they were shocked by his boasting. What the middle-aged man did not expect, however, was that Yun Jian would snatch the photo from him and ask where the person in the photo was placed when he was bragging about it. The middle-aged man was stunned. He reached out to grab the photo from Yun Jian's hand and muttered, "Little girl, what do you know? This is a place that only researchers can enter. Only great scientists like my cousin can enter. Even if you ask, you won't be able to enter. Hurry up and take the photos back." The middle-aged man rolled his eyes in his heart and thought to himself, children these days are really nosy. He just wanted to show off his cousin, Zhang Junyi, in front of his friends and relatives. Who would have thought that a little girl like Yun Jian would join in on the fun? The middle-aged man wanted to forcibly take the photo back from Yun Jian's hand, but Yun Jian moved sideways and avoided the middle-aged man's attempt to take the photo back from her hand. Yun Jian turned sideways and looked at Zhang Junyi from the corner of her eyes in front of everyone. Her sharp black eyes sized up Zhang Junyi, and she repeated her words, word by word, "Tell me, where is the girl in the photo?" Chapter 21:16. Looking at Yun Jian's focused gaze, the people around them blinked. Qin Yiru was serving the dishes while Yun Yi and Qin Yu were not around. Zhang Junyi, who received Yun Jian's gaze, could not help turning to study Yun Jian. This girl's gaze was so sharp. This made Zhang Junyi, who did not take Yun Jian seriously, look at Yun Jian. Just as Zhang Junyi was about to answer, Chen Ilan, who was already at odds with Yun Jian, chuckled in a strange tone. "Yo, hee, pretending to know when you don't? I've never seen a girl like you before. Just because you're young, you scolded my daughter, hee. You even said that my family's car has low specs, making you look so high and mighty. Now you're poking your nose into other people's research. Why do you always have a part in everything?" Chen Ilan, who spoke, rolled her eyes at Yun Jian in what she thought was a flirtatious manner. However, Yun Jian did not mind. She only stared at Zhang Junyi with her gaze that was as sharp as a sword, waiting for his reply. "Junyi, this girl must be out of her mind. Don't bother about her. Just give this photo to her. Come, let's have dinner and drink while we chat." Seeing that Yun Jian did not listen to him, the middle-aged man felt embarrassed. He waved at Zhang Junyi as he spoke, wanting to lead Zhang Junyi to one of the banquet tables that had been set up. In Marilena's tomb in Country M, Zhang Junyi did not listen to the middle-aged man or Chen Ilan. He narrowed his eyes and spoke to Yun Jian after the middle-aged man finished speaking. This little girl attracted his attention. "Thank you." Yun Jian retracted her gaze and thanked Zhang Junyi before turning to leave. The moment she turned her back to Zhang Junyi, Yun Jian's eyes flashed with an imperceptible light. What a strange girl. Zhang Junyi shook his head and laughed as he watched Yun Jian walk away. After dinner, everyone returned home. Only a few of Lu Lanhua's closest relatives were still there. After all, Yun Yi had feelings for Lu Lanhua. To Yun Yi, Lu Lanhua was his irreplaceable grandmother. Although he was disgusted by how Lu Lanhua had treated his mother and sister when she was alive. In the evening, Lu Lanhua's closest relatives went up the mountain to light a lantern for her. In the words of the village's superstitions, it was to prevent the deceased from feeling afraid because of the darkness on the mountain on the first night of her burial. Yun Jian waited for Yun Yi and Qin Yiru to be done before they drove back to Longmen City. It was already 7:30 in the evening. Not long after they drove out of Xinjiang town, there was a traffic jam. It was not really a traffic jam. It was the car of Chenilan's family, who had been unhappy with Yun Jian since the morning, collided with another car. It was not that serious. It was just the collision of the two cars that scraped against each other and scraped off some paint on the car. The driver of the car coming from the opposite direction said that he had collided with Chenilan's family's car and that both parties were responsible, so he did not call the police and settled the matter in private. The driver was in a hurry to leave because he had something urgent to attend to. In the end, Chenilan blocked the road like a shrew, demanding the driver to take full responsibility and compensate for her emotional distress. The shrew's tirade was incessant, comparable to the way she scolded Yun Jian earlier. Chenilan even parked her family's car in the middle of the road, saying that if the driver did not take full responsibility and compensate for her emotional distress, no one should drive on this road. Her shameless behavior made the driver frown. Chenilan left late today as well, but she had been stuck here for half an hour already. Just as the driver was rushing for time, thinking that he would just pay for the shrew he met today, he suddenly saw Yun Jian alighting from a Ferrari sports car. The moment he saw Yun Jian, the driver's eyes shone. He even abandoned his car and stumbled toward Yun Jian in front of Chenilan and everyone else. New Cruise's director. I heard that you went back to your hometown, so I came looking for you. Hello. I'm Su Wenzhang, Shengdi's director. Chapter 21:17. New Cruise's director? Chenilan put her hands on her waist. She was quite fat and didn't look very good. Her nose was very big, and her nostrils were so big that they were about the size of an adult's finger. Her nose was flat, her face was round, and her face was full of wrinkles. However, she was wearing lipstick and foundation that made her look like a young girl. New Cruise's director? The driver who had just collided with her sports car had actually rushed over and addressed Yun Jian as New Cruise's director. He had even used such a respectful tone. Chenilan was dumbfounded. She stared blankly at the scene before her. Yun Jian. This girl who was about the same age as her daughter, Hong Junhua, and whom she had not treated with respect before, was actually the internationally renowned director of New Cruise. That was impossible. Moreover, the driver she had just argued with was once the director of the largest car marketing company in Country Z, Saint Disco. New Cruise and Saint Disco were both renowned car marketing companies in Country Z. Before New Cruise, Saint Disco was once the largest car marketing company in Country Z. Now, not only had New Cruise taken away Saint Disco's title as the largest car marketing company in Country Z, it had even stepped onto the international platform before Saint Disco. Of course, even with New Cruise, Saint Disco's reputation was not something that Chenilan and the rest, who had started their business in plastic processing and had some savings, could compete with. To make an analogy, it was like the difference between an ant and an elephant. Chenilan's face was as white as a sheet. Her body froze instantly like a puppet whose strings had been cut. She was stunned on the spot. Just as Chenilan's face was as white as a sheet, Saint Disco's director, Su Wenzhang, spoke to Yun Jian respectfully and carefully. New Cruise's director, it's like this. Ever since New Cruise stepped onto the international platform, Saint Disco's monthly car sales have been on a downward trend. If this continues, Saint Disco won't be able to continue operating at a loss. Look at you. You're so young and yet you've managed to get to where you are today. I'm truly amazed by your capabilities. Since we're in the same industry, can you give Saint Disco some leeway? The CEO of Shengdi, Su Wenzhang, spoke carefully to Yun Jian. It was obvious that Su Wenjiang Xingdi had always been New Cruise's competitor. Now that New Cruise had entered the international market, the first big car company that the citizens in the country chose to buy cars was New Cruise. The main reason was that not only was New Cruise's prices affordable, but the car salesman service was top-notch as well. If word of this brand got out, they could even flaunt their wealth. Under such circumstances, Su Wenjiang Xingdi Company's sales were declining day by day. Today, Su Wenjiang Xingdi Company could no longer operate its funds. If this continued, it was very likely that it would face bankruptcy. Left with no choice, Su Wenjiang heard that New Cruise's director would be coming to Xinjiang town today, so he drove there without stopping to rest. Since he heard that the director of New Cruise was a young lady, Su Wenjiang had rushed over to see if he could get some sympathy from the director of New Cruise to spare them. After all, she was a young girl. Not to mention that she was a girl, she didn't have much life experience and was very easy to fool. Perhaps if he said a few more words, she would agree? As long as she spared his Xingdi company, it would only be a matter of time before he made a comeback and toppled New Cruise. In ancient times, there was a case of the king of Yu, Go Jian, gifting a beauty to the king of Wu, Fu Chai. In the end, he endured the humiliation and destroyed the Wu kingdom. As long as he could fool this young lady into sparing him today, he wouldn't have to worry about Xingdi not being able to topple New Cruise in the future. He, Su Wenjiang, refused to accept that his once largest car company in country Z had been snatched away by a young lady who had just come of age. However, just as Su Wenjiang thought that Yun Jian would agree, Yun Jian tilted her head to look at Su Wenjiang and denied it. No. Su Wenjiang was stunned as he thought that as a girl, Yun Jian would be too embarrassed to reject him. By then, Yun Jian had one foot in her red Ferrari sports car. Before she closed the door, she glanced at Su Wenjiang from the corner of her eyes and left him with a merciless remark. Perhaps after your company goes bankrupt, I can be merciful and buy your company at a high price, eh? Chapter 21:18. After that, Yun Jian's lips curled into a smile. She looked like she was sneering and mocking at the same time. She got into the red Ferrari right in front of everyone. A young lady in her prime would probably not be able to shed all pretenses of cordiality when faced with such a situation. Girls cared a lot about their reputation and were too embarrassed to reject people most of the time. Su Wenjiang initially thought that Yun Jian would be the same, which was why he boldly came to beg Yun Jian to let Xingdi off the hook. He wanted to give Xingdi a few car orders from New Cruise. Su Wenjiang had even prepared a contract that was beneficial to Xingdi. As long as he tricked Yun Jian into signing and stamping on the contract, it would be legally binding. Then, even if New Cruise did not want to admit it, they would still have to split half of the sales with him. If Yun Jian was a normal university student, she might have signed and stamped her name, falling into Su Wenjiang's trap after being lured in by Su Wenjiang's embellished words. The older the ginger, the spicier it was. That saying made sense. However, Yun Jian was not a normal university student. Therefore, before Su Wenjiang could use his words to trick Yun Jian rejected him decisively. She even said that after Su Wenjiang's company went bankrupt, she would be merciful and buy his company at a high price. Su Wenjiang almost vomited blood when he heard that. However, Su Wenjiang held it in. So, you're still not going to let us pass, Mr. CEO of Xingdi? Yun Jian raised her brows and threatened Su Wenjiang. Su Wenjiang clenched his fists and ran to make way for them. After all, he did not have the right to be arrogant in front of Yun Jian. With New Cruise's current capabilities, it was not impossible for them to trip up Xingdi. After the road was cleared, Yun Jian stepped on the accelerator. The fiery red flagship limited edition Ferrari LaFerrari sped forward like a flash of lightning. At the next junction, it drifted away at lightning speed and left everyone's sight. Chenilan and her family of 3 were left dumbfounded. She was the director of New Cruise. No wonder she could afford a sports car. I heard that new cruise's annual net profit is in the hundreds of millions. Compared to her new cruise, her family's plastic processing factory was just a silly joke. It was already 9:30 p.m. when they returned home to Longmen City. Yun Jian and Yuni parked their cars. At the same time, Yun Jian and the others were walking towards Gu Yunjian's house. Before they reached Gu Yunjian's house, a few figures suddenly walked out from the side. Chen Sini giggled and skipped over with a red veil in her hand. Mo Sun and Adam, who had not been seen for a long time, were standing at the gate. Luo Meiqi and Lan Su, who was carrying a child, also stood at the side, laughing secretly. What's wrong? Yun Jian was very confused. Sister, sister. Gidge. A lively figure sprung out from the bushes. It was Xiao Yunzhu who was leading the way, pulling Duanli and Duanya over as he shouted. Before he could finish, his mouth was covered by Leng Mei, who appeared out of nowhere. Shoo. Shoo. If you dare spout nonsense, I'll make your ass eat. Leng Mei pouted and glared at Xiao Yunzhu like she was afraid that Yun Jian would find out about the big secret from Xiao Yunzhu. Xiao Yunzhu blinked at the threat and kept quiet. Chen Sini went to Yun Jian and folded her veil before covering Yun Jian's eyes with it. Jian, don't move. Quick, quick, quick. Let me show you something. Yun Jian was confused, but when she saw how excited everyone around her was, she followed Chen Sini's lead to her and Siyi's villa and went inside. I'll remove your veil on the count of 3. 3, 2, 1. As she spoke, Chen Sini removed the veil that covered Yun Jian's eyes. What caught Yun Jian's eyes were the roses that were strewn all over the floor under the orange light of the house. From the living room to the stairs, from the stairs to the upper floor, the kitchen, the balcony, and everything else were covered with roses. The roses were arranged in various heart shapes and there was a wide variety of them. It was impossible to create such a lineup without spending days and nights. Inside the house, there was a total of 99,999 roses, which covered the entire villa. Yun Jian sucked in a breath and was stunned for a moment. Before Yun Jian could figure out what was going on, a slender figure flashed from the side and a handsome face appeared before her. Her hand was raised by the person who came, and a silver ring that shone under the orange light was put on her right ring finger. Then, Ce, who had never knelt to anyone before, knelt down on one knee in front of Yun Jian, right in front of everyone. Looking at Yun Jian sincerely, his thin lips moved as he spoke in a domineering tone that did not allow her to refute. Xiao Jian, marry me. A. Chapter 21:19. There was a hint of anticipation on Ce's chiseled face. After he put the ring on Yun Jian's right ring finger domineeringly, he knelt down on one knee in front of Yun Jian in front of everyone. Chen Sini, Lan Su, Luo Mei, Leng Mei, and Qing Yu almost clapped and cheered at his action. Mo Sun, Adam, and Zhang Xiaofan, Ling Yichen, and a few other men who were present with Chen Sini were not as enthusiastic as the women, but all of them had meaningful looks on their faces. This chapter is not authorized and cannot be read in green at the moment. If you support the author, please go to the official website to pay for your reading. A. Chapter 21:20. Ce did not know how to say sweet nothings, nor did he know how to do anything romantic. There was a type of person who was born high and mighty, as if he was the ruler of all things. His entire body exuded a sense of holiness that no one could underestimate. Even if he did things that were no different from ordinary people, his nobility made him stand out from the masses. Obviously, Ce was such a person. He had always been high and mighty, and even disdained to speak to others. This chapter is not authorized and cannot be read in green for the time being. If you support the author, please go to the official website to pay for reading. A. Chapter 21-21. After taking off her clothes, Ce went straight into Yunjian's room. Inside the room, the night was long. Just waiting for him to lift that mysterious veil, and see behind that veil of enchantment, and sink into depravity. After leaving Yunjian and Ce's house, Chen Sini was sent home by Zhang Xiaofan and Ling Yichen. Mo Sun also took Luo Berry away. Adam took the little boy, Zhou Ran, from Lan Su's arms. However, before he could do so, Zhou Ran hugged Lan Su tightly and glared fiercely at Adam, refusing to let him carry him. "You're being fierce with me? Be fierce again and I'll throw you into space." Zhou Ran pouted and glared fiercely at him, his little hand clutching Lan Su's clothes tightly. That little hand faintly touched Lan Su's chest. Adam's jealousy surged, and he roared at Zhou Ran, the little fellow. "Sob, sob, 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 Mama, Papa is bullying me." With that, Zhou Ran was even more unwilling to leave his mother's arms. "Why are you so fierce to the child? Go away." What made Adam even angrier was that Lan Su helped the child slap his hand away and walked away angrily. Adam tilted his head and could clearly see Zhou Ran hugging his mother, Lan Su, and making faces at him. "You little bastard, how dare you? How dare you snatch my woman?" Adam chased after him angrily. It was a noisy family of three, but they were also enjoying themselves. After Lang Mei left Yunjian and Ce's house, she walked carefully on the streets. Leader's stamina was too damn good. She was having fun day and night and her stamina couldn't take it anymore. If this continued, the one who would have a kidney deficiency wouldn't be the leader, but her. "Lang Mei, where are you going?" Lang Mei was about to leave carefully when Ruo Yin's voice came from behind. Ruo Yin was the spear god who was known as the sharpshooter in the Blood Doll organization. At the same time, Ruo Yin and Lang Mei, who was known as the #1 expert under the Blood Doll leader, were competing for the top spot. Ugh! Lang Mei saw that Ruo Yin had discovered her escape. She looked left and right, then rushed towards Ruo Yin and covered her mouth. "Shoo! Don't talk. I'm telling you, I'm running away. I'll come back later." Therefore, the position of Blood Doll's #1 expert is temporarily given to you. Take it if you want. Lang Mei's words stunned Ruo Yin. "You want to escape again? Where are you going?" Ruo Yin blinked and asked. "Even if I have to go to the ends of the earth, I will go wherever there is no leader." If she didn't escape now, her old waist would break. Lang Mei said solemnly. With that, Lang Mei released her hand that was covering Ruo Yin's mouth. She waved at Ruo Yin and was about to walk forward, leaving behind a cool sentence. Then, bye-bye. I'm leaving. Don't miss me, I'm just a legend. As soon as she said the word legend, a steady male voice sounded behind Lang Mei. Leaving? Where are you going? After hearing the steady male voice, Lang Mei was so scared that she trembled. She turned around slowly and stiffly. She forced a bitter smile. Hey, what a coincidence. Leader, why are you here too? Not far away, there was a man dressed in black from head to toe and wearing a black hoodie. Under the hoodie was a very young but frighteningly pale handsome face. It was late at night. Di Lin suddenly stood behind Lang Mei, giving off the feeling that he was a messenger of the night. What a coincidence. Di Lin's handsome face, which was almost pale, moved slightly. Unknowingly, Di Lin had already grabbed Lang Mei's hand. Ruo Yin gave Lang Mei a "take care" expression and slipped away. Hey! Ruo Yin, you! Lang Mei saw this and was about to scold Ruo Yin for being unkind. But Di Lin had already grabbed her hand and was walking towards the hotel. As your punishment for running away, you are not allowed to get out of bed for the next month. A. Chapter 21-22. Leng Mei rolled her eyes when she heard what Di Lin said. She had a feeling that her waist would be so sore that she could not feel anything for the next month because of her escape. God, she did not want that. The next morning, Yun Jian woke up sprawled on Ci's chest. She was not in a hurry to put on her clothes when she woke up but automatically wrapped her arms around his chest with her eyes closed. Ce had actually woken up a long time ago. When he felt his Yun Jian sleeping so soundly with her arms wrapped around his chest, he did not move, afraid that he would disturb her sleep. They slept until 8 in the morning and Yun Jian did not even go for her morning run. When they woke up, it was just in time for breakfast. Yun Jian stayed at home for the next 2 days with Ce. Occasionally, Xiao Yunzhu would bring Duanli and Duanya over to play with Yun Jian and Ce. However, Xiao Yunzhu, Duanli, and Duanya had made a group of friends recently, so they would go out when it was time for them to play. Children were innocent and naive, but also very cute. Yun Jian treated Ce as her man now, the kind where they did not hide anything from each other. Therefore, Yun Jian told Ce about the discovery of her body in her past life. Ce frowned when he heard that. After all, it was Yun Jian's body in her past life. They had not started researching it yet. It would be inappropriate if the researchers were to study her body. Who would want their body to be touched here and there? It was fortunate that they had not started researching it yet. It was Xiao Jian's original body after all. I'll send someone to get her back, Ce said. No, I'll do it myself. I won't publicize it if I can, Yun Jian said. Ce would never reject Yun Jian's decision. After staying at home with Ce for 2 days, Ce returned to an Han organization while Yun Jian returned to the University of Rivertown. On the long-distance bus back to Jiang City, Liang Xiumin, who was traveling with Yun Jian, had a bitter expression on her face. She looked as if she had a lot on her mind. Halfway through the car ride, Liang Xiumin asked Yun Jian, tell me, if a guy says he likes you, but plays around with other guys and girls every day, what do you think? Not only do you have to give him money, but you also have to treat his friends to meals and bars every day. If this kind of guy asked you to give yourself to him, would you agree? The boy Liang Xiumin was talking about was undoubtedly her boyfriend, Jin Yu. Yun Jian could tell that Liang Xiumin's boyfriend, Jin Yu, was most likely asking to sleep with Liang Xiumin. I won't, Yun Jian rejected decisively. Why? Liang Xiumin asked, puzzled. Protect yourself. Otherwise, you'll regret it. Yun Jian didn't give a reason. She only said this to Liang Xiumin. Liang Xiumin fell silent after hearing this. At that time, Liang Xiumin had never thought that her life would change because of Yun Jian's words. After Yun Jian returned to school, she went back to her normal life. In the past few days, the most sensational news was that the most handsome guy in Dongfang University, who had displayed 99 roses in a heart to Yun Jian, had his legs crippled by an unknown person. He even had difficulty walking in the future. Needless to say, this was definitely done by Ce. However, this wasn't within the scope of Yun Jian's consideration. At this moment, Yun Jian was planning to apply for leave to go to Marilena's tomb in Country M in a few days' time. However, plans could never keep up with changes. On this day, Yun Jian and Zhu Huili arrived at the classroom very early and saw that their classmates were already there. A few of them were holding a newspaper and making a big fuss. Seeing that Yun Jian had arrived, the classmates were still talking among themselves. One of the students was holding a newspaper at this moment and cried out in surprise, Mr. Zhang. Oh my God! Shocking! Shocking! I heard that something big happened internationally. The top secret agent on the international secret agent ranking, the infamous Slaying God, is dead. Her body is in Marilena's tomb in Country M. I heard that she's been dead for a long time but her body hasn't decomposed yet. Now that countless international bosses have heard the news, they've formed teams to snatch her away. A. Chapter 21-23. I heard that the news was leaked by someone. I wonder if it's true. Shocking. It's too shocking. According to the newspaper, after hearing the news, all the top people in the world rushed to Marilina's grave before they even had the time to think about the authenticity of the news. Slaying God, the #1 international secret agent ranking, is just too awesome. It's just a rumor, but it's not confirmed that it's slaying God. This chapter is not authorized and cannot be read in green for the time being. If you support the author, please go to the official website to pay for it. A. Chapter 21-24. The male student's word successfully attracted Yunjian's attention. Yunjian stopped in her tracks. Hehe, I knew you'd be interested in this. Seeing how you usually don't care about ordinary things, I knew you'd be especially interested in some strange things. The male student walked towards Yunjian. As he walked, he even snapped his fingers and pretended to be quite handsome. You're from the Archaeological Society? This chapter is not authorized and cannot be read in green for the time being. If you support the author, please go to the official website to pay for reading. A. Chapter 21-25. This female member was also a student of the School of Archaeology of Rivertown and a member of the Archaeology Society. Most of the students in the School of Archaeology of Rivertown were from the Archaeology faculty. Very few students from other faculties were studying in the School of Archaeology of Rivertown. Hence, the Archaeology Society wasn't like other societies where you could join as long as you were interested. If a student of the School of Archaeology of Rivertown wanted to join the Archaeology Society, they had to be outstanding. Outstanding here meant that they were outstanding enough to be one of the best in the School of Archaeology of Rivertown. Only then would they be qualified to join the Archaeology Society. Besides Yunjian, Ma Zhixiang and the other 4 were all members of the Archaeology Society. In other words, the 5 of them were the best in the School of Archaeology of Rivertown. The female member who spoke was called Lu Yuyan. Lu Yuyan had the best overall ability among the 5 members of the Archaeology Society who were participating in the tomb adventure. She said that because the few of them had already explored a place like the tomb before. In the end, they had brought a person with no common sense there and had almost triggered the trap in the tomb, causing all of them to lose their lives on the spot. In the end, Lu Yuyan had resolved the crisis and saved everyone. Lu Yuyan's words weren't directed at Yunjian. After Lu Yuyan said that, Ma Zhixiang scratched his head. His face that wasn't handsome but wasn't ugly either immediately revealed an awkward expression. Have you learned self-defense before? Ma Zhixiang turned to ask Yunjian. The tomb adventure wasn't like the usual. Previously, the person who didn't know anything had almost wiped out all the members of the Archaeology Society who had gone to the tomb. As the president, Ma Zhixiang naturally had to take this matter seriously. This wasn't a joke. However, Ma Zhixiang wasn't a straightforward person when it came to rejecting people. Otherwise, he wouldn't have taken the risk to bring a person who didn't know anything to the tomb. Oh yes, Zhixiang, she's the one I told you about previously. She's the new president of the Martial Arts Society at the University of Electronic Science and Technology of China. Oh, she's amazing. Even the president of our Martial Arts Society, Mo Bufan, wasn't her match. So, you don't have to worry about whether she'll drag you down. Tong Zhengjin patted his chest and spoke to Ma Zhixiang in a reassuring tone. Lu Yuyan let out a sigh of relief. Then, she turned to Yunjian and said, "That's good. We've confirmed that there will be 6 of us. We'll set off at 2:00 sharp. If you have anything to do, you should take advantage of this time to do it." Compared to the initial questioning, Lu Yuyan's tone was much more easygoing. Lu Yuyan had the demeanor of an elder sister. She was tall, about 1. 7 meters tall, with a pair of slender legs. She wore a pair of black flat-bottomed boots, a clean black button-down shirt, and a pair of black shorts. Paired with nude-colored stockings, she didn't feel cold even though it was getting closer to winter. Lu Yuyan's appearance was not bad. Her facial features were exquisite. It was just that when she spoke, she had a straight face, which gave people the illusion that she was scolding someone. Actually, it wasn't a bad thing. Yun Jian didn't say much but responded. Yun Jian went back to the martial arts club near the school and instructed the members to practice well. At 2:00 in the afternoon, she met up with Ma Zhixiang, Lu Yuyan, and the other four. The group boarded the bus to the airport. After taking the plane to Country M, they transferred to a small village in Country M. The small village in Country M wasn't poor. Country M wasn't as big as Country Z, and its population was far less than Country Z. In addition, Country M's economy was developing faster. Therefore, the village here had been developing very well since 2002. Ma Zhixiang rented a taxi, which took them to the small village. "Shall we find a place to rest today?" Ma Zhixiang said. They still needed to find out where Marilena's tomb was. It was everyone's first time coming to this small village in Country M, so they naturally didn't know the way. Yun Jian and the others nodded in agreement. "By the way, if any of you have good English and can communicate normally with the people in Country M, go and ask the passers-by where Marilena's tomb is. We'll find a place to rest nearby." In the group, a fat and short boy spoke up. "Yuyan's English is good. Let her go." Yuyan was the one who translated the taxi just now, a girl with 2 ponytails said. "I learned it from the English school. I really don't know how to ask for directions." Lu Yuyan wasn't proud and said bluntly. "Then what should we do?" The girl with 2 ponytails shook her head and frowned. Just when everyone didn't know what to do, a beautiful voice sounded, "I'll go, eh?" Chapter 21-26. The one who spoke was none other than Yun Jian. Yun Jian pursed her lips and replied. "Is your English good?" The lowly-looking girl with 2 ponytails turned to look at Yun Jian and asked. Although the lowly-looking girl with 2 ponytails was already in university, her appearance and dressing made her look like a junior high school student. Her name was Night Spirit. Night Spirit. Just from her name, one could tell that she was a mischievous girl. Night Spirit was actually 19 years old, but judging from her appearance, people would believe that she was only 14 or 15 years old. "I can communicate normally with Americans," Yun Jian explained. "That's amazing." The fat boy next to her was called Guodongyang. He gave Yun Jian a thumbs up. As for the 5 people other than Yun Jian, the boy who had never spoken was nearly 1.9 meters tall. His body was quite strong, and his strong muscles could be seen from his clothes. This boy's name was Ling Feng. He did not like to talk much and looked rather mature. He was only in his early 20s, but he looked like a mature man in his 30s. Ma Zhixiang and the other 4 did not doubt Yun Jian's words at all. Since they had agreed to let Yun Jian come with them, then in their hearts, they had already treated Yun Jian as one of their own. Soon, with Yun Jian asking for directions, the 6 of them found a hotel closest to Marilena's tomb. Marilena's tomb was nearby, but it was still a 2-hour journey on the mountain road from the village. The mountain path was rugged, so it was usually done in groups of several people. There were no exceptions. This was because if you did not go in groups, the villagers would not allow foreigners to go to Marilena's tomb. After resting for a day, Yun Jian and the others went to Marilena's tomb with teams from various countries early the next morning. Other than Yun Jian's team, the other teams were basically made up of foreigners. However, what was rather surprising was that one of the teams was also from Country Z. Looking at the age of the members of that team, they were also in their 20s. Like Ma Zhixiang and the others, they were probably from an archaeology school. However, those people looked quite cold. When they were walking on the mountain road, Ma Zhixiang kindly handed the oranges he brought to them and asked if they wanted to eat them. In the end, that person directly slapped the oranges Ma Zhixiang gave him to the ground. Ma Zhixiang looked embarrassed, and then the two parties ignored each other. Yun Jian did not pay attention to these things. The group continued forward. The mountain road was rugged and even steep in some places. When they reached a fork in the road, they were about to go to the other road. The owner of the inn gave him a map. This fork in the road was the closest route to Marilina's tomb. Just as the group was about to walk in that direction, a few foreigners who were sitting on a few large rocks at the intersection of the road jumped down from the rocks and blocked the way. "We're taking this road. All of you, scram to the other road," the leader of these people said in a ruffian voice. He spoke in English. This road belongs to everyone. Who do you think you are to take it just because you say so?" In another team from Country Z, like Yun Jian's team, a girl with loose hair and Western-style clothes replied to the leader in fluent English. This Western-style girl was called Lu Mengyu. That was what her companions called her. Everyone present could speak English. It was just a matter of whether they were proficient or not. As for Ma Zhixiang, Night Spirit, and the others, they were all university students who got into regular universities. They could generally understand the general meaning of English. It was just that they did not know how to speak it. After the Western-style Lu Mengyu finished speaking, the ruffian foreigners walked to the side. Seeing this, Lu Mengyu turned around and smiled smugly at her companions. At the same time, she glanced at Yun Jian and the others from the corner of her eyes. She was full of arrogance and superiority. However, these ruffian foreigners walked to the side and soon surrounded them again. What was different from before was that these ruffian foreigners all had rifles in their hands. The leader of the ruffian foreigners laughed and said, "This road belongs to us. Whoever dares to take it will die." Seeing the foreigners who suddenly carried weapons, Lu Mengyu realized that these foreigners were not ordinary people. She was so frightened that she sat on the ground and crawled back a few steps. Seeing this, the ruffian foreigners nodded and smiled contemptuously. However, just as everyone was disheartened and planned to take a longer route, and the ruffian foreigners looked at the people in front of them with contempt, a beautiful female voice rang out. It was a voice that made the depths of one's soul tremble violently. It spread throughout the place. "I'm so sorry. I never knew that my corpse was so charming that it even attracted your Gale mercenaries to come and join in the fun today. It's my honor." You're tuning into the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.